Hello, hello. Welcome to the future Rideshare Millionaire Podcast. Hope you guys are having a good day. Hope you guys are out there making money. So the question I wanted to start with, I'm going to start doing these every week. Question of the stream. Do you want to be a long-term rideshare driver? And if not, what would you like to do instead? And if you do want to be a long-term rideshare driver, which includes, building up your private base and all of that, what's your strategy? What's your plan? What are you doing now to get yourself closer to that? Let's see what you guys are saying so far. This up says, my dream is actually to stream RuneScape on YouTube, but I'm not able to at the moment, so I'm driving. I enjoyed driving, though it feels like a video game. No idea if you're serious. I've never actually played RuneScape, so I have no idea what it entails, but I heard it's a grind. But I know you're kind of like here for 6 months, and then you go back to wherever you go for 6 months. You could stream during that downtime, when it's slow for rideshare in the winter season. But I don't really know what you're up to when you're not here. So that's something you can do. Commuter Branch Line says, I'm about to retire and looking to rideshare as a flexible part-time gig where I make cash when I need to jet off to Thailand for 3 months without worrying about a boss to cry about. Hold on, I can't see all of the comment. Give me a second. I'm using some new stuff here. So there's gonna be some hiccups as we move along. Let me see if I can fix this. I don't think I'll be able to fix it. All right. We're gonna have to go back to the old way for a second. Here we go. I'll cry about the timeout. So it's not that I couldn't see the whole comment. The whole comment just wasn't there. Okay. Let's see. Hold on. Let me put it back. Give me a second, guys. Some technical difficulties. Okay, so Mike B says, no, I don't want to be a long-term rideshare driver. I want to own a security company. What kind of security company? Are we talking about like security guards? Are you talking about like tech? And what steps are you gonna do to like get to that path? Like what's stopping you from doing that right now? And what's your plan to like destroying those roadblocks? This says, I plan on living in Thailand one day, but need that decent income first. So I'll drive and try to take things one day at a time. There, I picked up a passenger who was going to Thailand. Apparently, they're having like a big festival over the course of like the last week or two. And he was just telling me how much he loves it over there. He discovered his love for it through the military. He's no longer in the military. But a lot of expats, expatriates, people who no longer want to live in America, your dollar goes so far in other countries. Usually, the expensive part to getting to those countries is the cost of the airline ticket. But once you're in those countries, you can live like a king with very, very small amounts of American dollars, just because of how the exchange rate works. So if you're not trying to make a ton of money, but you want to live a life as if you did, that's a solution that you could do. That's not something that I want to do. I do want to live in Japan for a couple of years. I don't think I'll live like a king just because of the conversion rate. You have to pick your countries wisely. But I like America. I like living here, and I'm going to do my best to be able to afford the lifestyle I want, even though it's going to be harder to do it in America than somewhere else. Just because cost of living is cheaper doesn't mean it's a one to one. There are other things that you have to decide. Hey, is this for me? Can I do this here? Am I going to raise a family? Will my family be okay with this? Will my wife be okay with this? So there's a lot to consider there. But I do think that, for the financially conscious, um, and you're not really tied down to America, there are some countries out there that you can have a great life in with not as much money as it would cost to have that similar life here in America. My B says, I also want to sell sloppy joes and meatball and cheese subs. I make delicious ones. Well, I'll be down to test it out. I know that here in Charleston, they just opened someone came from Philly and opened up a Philly Philly cheesesteak shop. I haven't been yet. Kind of because with Charleston, it's weird. It's like what Charleston does, they do it very well, and everything else is kind of meh. So like when it comes to barbecue, seafood, southern food, it's excellent. But as soon as I jump out of those categories, it's meh. It's like, it's nothing special. You can find it in your home. So I'm always wary about trying things that are like outside of that. But I don't know. Like, why aren't you doing that now? You said you want to sell it. You could probably start making a couple, selling it at the airport to drivers, seeing how it goes. But what's stopping you from going out and doing it right now? Nisef says the 1 week you don't see me as number one on solo is the week I begun streaming. All right, I mean, that's bold of you. I might be coming for the title soon. I'm ramping up a little bit. It might get slow here in Charleston. Now that the college students are gone, they're kind of gone. So not slow in the sense of like winter slow, but slow in the sense of I don't think we're gonna see March kind of numbers for a while unless there's events happening. And even then, it's always better to have events with the college students here, with the tourism here. But with the students gone, who knows? This weekend should be pretty decent since we have graduation happening. But it's going to be that dead period. And then it's going to be like slower once the elementary school and high school age kids are out. Because what will happen is all of those teachers who don't have to work through the summer, they're going to start doing gig work. That's what I've noticed over the years. So prepare for that. Start saving your money. Don't be reckless with it just because it's easier to make that money now. We need to be prepared for the winter as well, right? Community branch sounds all good. Sound and vision 5x5. Thanks. Nair says the family thing is hard, especially with the risk of kids, grandkids not getting their American citizenship, and they might get stuck in said country while your money might go as far. They'll need to make a career there, and they can set them up backwards in life. The U.S., financially speaking, is the best place in the world. I agree with that. We have our issues, we have our troubles, and no country doesn't. But I think that I was listening to Dave Ramsey this week, and he said that America is the best place to start with nothing and make something of yourself, financially speaking. He even noted that people who migrate here are like 2 to 3 times more likely to be financially successful than people who are born here, like legal migration. So that's somewhat of a testament. And I've seen that even in my I'm Jamaican, my Jamaican counterparts. The black neighborhood that has the highest income in America is a place in Queens called Laurelton, and it's full of Jamaicans. Just to be real, like one part of what makes that specific community so much better well off is that they have a very low divorce rate. Handling your business as a married couple helps you gain that financial independence as well. It's one of the hacks, the marriage hack. Mike B says, to be honest, what's stopping me right now is the fear of failure. Oh man, you won't get me hyped up. We just got started. You won't get me hyped up. I'm going to say that you should be worried about failure, but not in the sense that it paralyzes you from moving forward, right? You are going to fail in one aspect or another. And those who win are those who fail and continue anyways, right? I fail. I put out videos that don't do well. I do things, I make changes, they don't do well. Sometimes I go out and drive and I'm like, yo, there's no money out here. I'm failing right now. I'm taking bad rides. I'm making bad decisions. You're going to fail. You just have to learn through those failures and push through, man. The hardest part of starting is starting. So I need you to start. I'm going to start holding you accountable. You got to start, man. Near says also to truly retire in the cheaper countries, the way to do it is to invest smartly and have your investments be able to cover your lower cost of living. Earning money there is hard. I agree with that. To speak more on that, I'm still not in the place where I can show you guys what I'm doing from a like investment standpoint. I've decided to not invest while I'm paying off my debt. I should be debt free this year. We do have some money in investments. I'm gonna estimate around 50K, but that's a retirement account. So it's just going to stay there. When we finish paying off our debt, we'll start investing again. But he's right. There is a formula. I like to call this the infinite money glitch. There is a formula of how much money you need to invest into the stock market safely that will generate enough revenue for you to live off of and have that money that you're living like that you're pulling from never deplete. So it's always growing faster than inflation and your usage rate. So for different people, it's going to be different numbers. But when you, for example, for me, this number might change, by the time I'm ready to retire. But I would like to have enough money invested that I can pull out, let's call it 80K a year from my household, right? We're assuming my house is paid off. I have no debt. My car loans are paid off. We're assuming kids aren't in the house anymore. So $80,000 hopefully can go a pretty long way when you have no expenses and you just kind of want to live and chill. So there is a mathematical formula based off of current market conditions or even historical market conditions that you can figure out to say, hey, how much money do I need invested in order to pull out $80,000 every year and not have that money ever deplete, right? Due to inflation. There's math that goes into that. In the future, I'll make a video about it, but I'm a little wary about making videos about things that I'm not currently in, and because I'm not currently investing, I don't want to touch those topics yet, but we will get to them eventually. My B says, I don't know how to get past the mental block. You got to figure it out. I don't know what the solution is there either, but you got to figure it out. Something that I've learned from YouTube is that you just got to start, right? Like you start with your friends, start with your family, you don't have to sell something. You just make something. And I know food can be a little personal, but you have to make what you're making, give it to people and be willing to get the feedback, right? If it's bad, don't consider that necessarily a failure, right? To a degree it is some kind of a failure, but don't let that stop you from figuring out why it's bad or how to improve this, or so start small, do it for your friends and your family. They have an event, like, hey, I can make these. You've had them before. You like them. Uh, just give me the cost for the goods, And then you go there, you show up to the party, you give out some cards. You can start literally anywhere. But what I really love about food is that the people around you are like your easiest targets. Everybody eats, right? If you make good food, people will come, right? Eventually, you probably want your own storefront or whatever it is. You could even just do deliveries, right? You can be like, all right, I'm an Uber or Lyft driver. Let me go to the airport. Let me start collecting people's names. Let me start going at 2 p.m. every week. Of course, do it as legal as possible as you can. I don't know what, every city's ramifications for doing something like that would be, but just start, bro. I promise you, just start. Like when I started making videos, I mean, even today, I still have to worry about failing in public, right? You see me go on with beef and all that crazy stuff. That stuff happens in public, and you, I don't think I'll ever be like resistant to worrying about failing, right? I'm always thinking about it because you don't want to fail, but I don't think I'll ever let failure be a reason why I don't try something new. But that's really smart advice. Thank you. You're welcome, man. My brain is always on like marketing tactics. Like, how do we get this started and how do we move forward? Okay. So, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go through how much money I made last week. I'm going to break it down. Had a pretty good week, but I had a really strong ride challenge bonus, so I'm not even gonna sit here and pretend like, oh, I did some great stuff. Yeah, I did my normal stuff and had a pretty good ride challenge on top of it. Let me get that pulled up. For those of you who are new, whenever I show how much money I made, I always start with the Lyft app. And here we go. This is what I want. Hold on. There we go. So this is the Lyft app. It's my computer is being fed information wirelessly from my phone, and this is the actual Lyft app. You know, you can see all my rides, my tips, my ride bonuses, all of that. It's all here. On Sunday, I hit both parts of a challenge. Let me see. Let me see if I can find out how much this ride challenge was for. All right, so the second part was for 190. It was a really good ride challenge. It's the first time I received a ride challenge that didn't require 120 rides and had a good dollar value attached to it. Let me see where the other part of this ride challenge is. So I can get you guys the total. And you know what? I think that if I go to my weekly summary, you can see the total. Weekly breakdown. This is this week. You can see what last week. All right, so here's the breakdown right here. Ride earnings $557.36. It's not that great. Bonuses $842.43. Let's see what those bonuses entail. So it says other bonuses is $467.25. That's for like ride bonuses where you're looking at the map. You see, ooh, if you go to this zone, you get an extra $5 on top of the ride fare. That's what the other bonuses is, I'm assuming. Ride challenge bonus is $330. So the ride challenge was for $330 for 85 rides. That's really good. That's the best ride challenge I've gotten ever. Not necessarily from a dollar perspective, but from a dollar per ride perspective, it was really good. I am capable of hitting 120 rides over the course of 3 days. It sucks. It takes all day. It can happen, but with the college students not being here, I wouldn't have been able to do it. That Friday specifically was one of the slower Fridays I've experienced this summer so far. Cinco de Mayo was Sunday, so that did help with getting enough rides on Sunday. I think I did 38 rides on Sunday. But while I might be making similar amounts of money as before, my average ride length is increasing. I'm finding that the college students are the ones taking a bunch of short rides, and when they're gone, they're gone. Of course, tourists still come to the city. Locals still go out, but those locals typically live a little further than the college students, or they're not paying to go bar to bar. I know a lot of these college students, they waste a lot of money being picked up from one bar, going down 2 streets, which they really could have walked. They really could have walked. And those kind of rides haven't really been abundant this past weekend. So I did hit the 85 rides for the weekend, but I did like certain days I did struggle for it. So it's something I got to pay attention to, because when I get a ride challenge, you know, I'm using historical data to determine, is this possible? Should I even try it? And now that the college students are going to be leaving for the summer until August, I'm going to have to like make sure that I'm not overreaching or trying to do too much when I'm deciding to do ride challenges. So for Turbo, I made $39.18. If you haven't heard my thoughts on Turbo before, I think that it's cool, but like it's not game changing. I'm not gonna adjust my strategy to do turbo things. I think that if you have like a black car or a car that can generate high dollar base fares, it might be better for you. The problem with turbo is turbo, it gives you a percentage, right? Let's say it's 10% of the ride fare, but it doesn't include bonuses. So, you know, if the ride fare is low and majority of my money, as you can see right here, is coming from bonuses, right? I The ride earnings was $557. In other bonuses, like the bonuses that I wish Turbo apply to, it's $467. It's almost 1 to 1, right? I almost made as much money in ride earnings that I did with bonuses, right? So the percentages aren't being applied to these bonuses. So it's not that great. It's only $39.18. It's more money than I would have had otherwise, but it's not enough to justify my strategies. Like, am I going to change my strategy because there's a turbo? Am I going to leave my house just because there's a turbo? Probably not. I don't think Turbo's really for the drivers. I think Lyft is just using it to try to encourage more drivers to drive at specific times without having to pay them, right? They're kind of gamifying it to like, oh, hey, look, if you drive at this time, we're going to give you an extra XYZ percentage. But that XYZ percentage is going to like encourage people to hit the road and decrease the overall income for the driver pool. So Lyft definitely benefits more from Turbo than drivers do. I don't think it's worth adjusting your strategy for it. But it is what it is. They're going to continue to create new ways to save money for themselves, get more drivers out there without having to pay them to be out there. And you can also see bonus hours. It says $6. I feel like I did more. I guess I didn't do a lot of bonus hours. I guess I didn't. Tips was $112.46. And tolls and pass-throughs, $4. I think pass-throughs like cancellations. I don't usually get a lot of cancellations. I think I only had 2. So the total earnings was $1,516. This is my first full week. It's not even a full week. This is just really a weekend, right? I did drive a little bit at the beginning of the week, but I finally got my car situation like figured out. And before I had my car situation figured out, I didn't want to put too many miles on my wife's car. So I was using my wife's car while I was figuring out my car situation. And it actually qualifies for comfort. So I have some thoughts on comfort, but I'll share them later. But this weekend was the first full weekend that I drove with my car situation figured out. So we're spinning back up. We're getting under our list to go. I am trying to capitalize on the summer income because I know it's gonna get slow in the winter, and I know I have my goals, and I know like if I'm gonna overwork myself, now is the time to overwork myself, so I don't have to overwork myself when it's slower. So I'm trying to not leave money on the table, trying to rent back up, and just earn the money. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get caught back up. And by caught back up, I really would like to make 100K gross this year from Uber and Lyft. I'm not behind on my bills. My bills were straight. Like I didn't I'm glad that I practice what I preach. I'm glad that I was already putting money aside before the accident because it gave me a lot more options to take care of business. I'm kind of being cryptic here. I'm sorry, but I am gonna make a video explaining it. I'm kind of reverting my content strategy a little bit to where I'm at my best when I'm making scripted content, when I'm writing a script, when I'm doing my editing, and I think you guys enjoy that better as well. Of course, I'll still do the lives, and if something important happens, I'll cut the live up and I'll put it out. But I really want to make sure my content is helpful. Um, and the most efficient way for me to do that is to like make actual well-produced videos. So I'm gonna get back to that, and that's where I'm happiest as a creator as well. I'm eh, I'm just gonna have to figure out how to do it while making money. I don't want to miss out on money with Uber and Lyft because of YouTube. So it's a balancing act, but we'll have it figured out. Hello, hello. All right, we're back. So we'll finish up looking at the Lyft numbers. So you can see I did $500, 500 miles booked, right? So that's about $3 per mile booked, but I'm not gonna try to deceive you guys. Booked is not the best way to look at your overall, right? And I do track my mileage, so I'll show you what I actually drove compared to what Lyft is showing me that I drove. You see that I drove 24 hours, right? Fine, I'll do it. Let's look at the calculator. We're gonna see what my so booked. We're gonna call it active time. We're gonna see what Lyft says my active time is. And active time is not necessarily a bad thing. Um, the problem is it's not the full story. So 1516 divided by 24 hours. So $63.16 booked, which is cool. It's cool, but it's not. I need to do a better job of tracking. I'm gonna show you how much I made per hour with online hours, but even then, I still need to start tracking my door to door time. So let me pull up my spreadsheet so I can show you guys the breakdown. All right, so here's the breakdown. Here's my mileage. I put in what I start with, put in what I end with, and then I categorize them: personal, business, personal, personal, business, to keep it IRS compliant. So I did 764 miles this past weekend for business, and these numbers aren't correct. It says I made a total of 14. Oh yeah, they are correct. So on my weekly summary, it says 15 and change, but this is for May, right? So May started during that week, so it doesn't encapsulate the entire week. So for May so far, I've made $1,400. I've made more than that, but I can't say why yet. Sorry. But over the course of 27 hours, 28 hours if we're rounding up of online time. So this is beyond active time, but not door to door time. This is me online on the app. Friday was $262.81. Saturday was $376.59 over the course of 8 hours. I did 8 hours on Friday, 8 hours on Saturday. For Sunday, I had to push it a little further. It's $763.52, and $330 out of that was from challenges. So even without the challenges, it's still pretty good, right? Friday was slower than normal for my market this time, just because the college students are gone. So I did $31. I averaged $31.35 an hour. I also made some bad decisions. I took some rides I shouldn't have taken, and it messed with my mileage, and it messed with my timing. But that's all me. You lose, you lose. You make mistakes sometimes. Sometimes I try to try things and they don't work out well, and we learn to move forward. Saturday, I did $45.28 per hour, and that's again no ride challenges. I didn't hit the ride. I hit both parts of the ride challenge on Sunday, right? So $45.28. That's good. That's respectable. And then we have Sunday, which is $67.67, but part of that has the ride challenge in there. So, and then for gas, I need to do better with putting my recurrent expenses at the beginning of the month. I need to put my insurance in here, my car wash, and those are the only recurring expenses I have for Uber and Lyft. I guess my phone bill could go in there too. So I'll make sure I have that ready for next week. But so far, all I've spent is just gas. If you're new here, I don't have a car payment. I don't believe in debt. I have debt from when I did believe in debt, some student loan debt. I have a mortgage debt, but the goal is to pay those things off to decrease the amount of expenditure we have every month, which is how you have a profitable business, right? You can make a lot of money with rideshare, but the important thing is how much money you keep. That is the important thing, right? And it's a sliding scale. You might be able to buy a vehicle that makes you more money, but if the vehicle also increases your expenses, it's a sliding scale for when it actually becomes worth it. So you just have to know your numbers, right? I'm actually shocked by how many drivers don't track their mileage. I'm super shocked. And for some reason they like to come into my comments and like kind of justify it. They're like, yo, you don't really need to track your mileage. Here's why. And it's never like an argument rooted in logic. It's usually like, oh, I've been doing this for long enough. I don't need to track my mileage. But I don't understand how the length of time you doing rideshare negates the benefits of tracking your mileage. I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but I don't understand that. I think that the more information you have can lead to better decision making. My favorite part of my spreadsheet is right here, the tax summary. So I got hit with taxes this year, guys. I learned that in previous years, the reason why I wasn't paying any taxes is because the government was giving us some good tax credits, just that were really related to COVID. Now that that is gone, right? There's no more COVID tax credits and things like that. At least not that I qualify for. So I actually had to pay taxes this year, guys. But with the mileage write off, it did lower my taxable income to where the only tax I had to pay was a self employment tax. Apparently, you can't get away from that no matter what your income looks like on paper. So I didn't have to pay any state taxes because the mileage write off lowered my income to be below the threshold to be taxed in South Carolina. And I didn't have to pay any other federal tax. Well, I did make a mistake that I think was worth it. I get my insurance. Yeah, let me tell you about this because I make videos about getting insurance as a rideshare driver. They don't do very well. They're not popular, but this is one of those things you guys need to make sure you have, right? I have health insurance. It's helped me with my diabetes. It's helped me with my blood pressure. Um, I have prescriptions that I don't have to pay for because I have insurance, and I pay about $25 a month, right? I get my glasses this way too. If I need contacts, that's how I do it. I pay about $25 a month. The way it generally works is if you get your health insurance through the marketplace, there are subsidies that you can qualify for based off of your income. Now, as rideshare drivers, our income always looks low on paper, right? Because we have the mileage write off, we get to deduct that from our income. So just for fake numbers, even if I make, we see these articles all the time. Even if I make 100K in 1 year, but I drove 100,000 miles to make that 100K, averaging $1 per mile, I'll get to write off 67 cents for every mile that I drove, right? So that would be $67,000 subtracted from my $100,000. So I made $33,000 on paper, right? If you probably walked away with a lot more than that, but the government is only considering you to have made $33,000, right? Is it 33 or is it 23? 3, 7, 33. It's 33. So when you put that information in to see if you qualify for health insurance subsidies, you're putting in that $33,000, and it makes it way more likely for you to qualify for those subsidies. The problem is if you make more money than that, right? They want you to put in what you think you're going to make next year using what you made the previous year, because you have to sign up for insurance in November. October, November is when open enrollment starts. So there's no way for you to know for sure how much money you're going to make next year. So you have to estimate, right? And then when you do your taxes, they compare that number to what you were supposed to have done. And if they find that you made more money, they're going to take some of that qualifications away. You're going to have to pay some of that back. However, there is a cap on it. The cap is $700. So in addition to paying my 15, in addition to paying this tax rate of 15.3%, that's self-employment tax, I had to pay an additional $700 on my taxes because I made more money than I put, right? Not because I lied. I didn't lie. I put similar numbers to what I made before, but I ended up making more money than I made before. So I didn't lie. But when I worked out the math, it was still worth it, even if I had to pay $700, right? So here's my calculator again. I pay, let's call it $25 a month for insurance last year, or multiply that by 12. So I paid $300 out of pocket for health insurance, right? Now I had to pay $700 because I made more money, and the sliding scale for the subsidy changed. So they had to pay $700, but they do cap it, right? They say no matter what, you can't pay more than that 700. So for $1,000 divided by 12, that's how much that was multiplied by 12. That's wrong. Hold on. I forgot what the numbers were. It was $1,000 So I had to pay $1,000 for insurance overall for 2023, and then we divide that by 12. So I paid $83 a month for insurance. I still think that's a good deal. You know, people who are on payroll pay significantly more for insurance every month. I'm using insurance for my glasses. I use insurance for psychiatry. I have ADHD and I get my meds through this insurance. I I do my routine doctor visits. That's how I found out I even was diabetic. So, without this, my life probably would have been cut a lot short. So if you need insurance, this is a great way to do it, especially if you don't have a payroll job. I think it's worth it, even if there's some things that can fire back on you. It fired back on me in the sense of, dang, I'm paying more in taxes than I thought I would. However, I did talk to my wife and I was like, hey, um, starting in December, I didn't pay any quarterlies, right? So let's be in, and her job requires her to file and not owe, or she could lose her job, right? And now that we're married and we're filing together, I said, hey, let's just stack up money, right? Let's just stack up money and then we'll file our taxes and we'll see what we have to pay. And so I had the money for it and it was a good call for me to do that. And we just paid it. It was like 2000 and change I had to pay. I'm going to make a video detailing that, breaking it down. I'm working on it right now. But, just wanted to share that with you. So I'm going to put my tax rate as 15%, 15.3%. And I think I'm going to start paying quarterlies at least on that amount of money. Because if that's something that I'm going to have to pay regardless, I don't want to get in trouble with the government. And whatever I can do to mitigate that, that's what I'm going to do. So every quarter, every 4 months, I'll put away, is every 4 months? No, every 3 months, I'll put away 15.3% and just have it. Well, I'll have to submit it to the government. I've never done it before, so I guess I'll have to make a video on how to do it as I'm doing it. But that's the plan moving forward. But based off of my mileage write-off, which is $511, my taxable income is $891 at a tax rate of 15.3%. My estimated taxes would be 100. Oops. Okay, oops again. I'm trying to zoom in for you guys. It'd be $136.33. My true net would be $1,197 out of the $1,400 that I made. And my true hourly, after expenses and taxes, I still need to add my insurance and things like that, is $42.79. So it's still pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this first weekend back, even though it's a little slower than normal. I know some people were looking at me crazy because I was saying, yeah, it's slow, but here's how much I made and whatever. But I'm just pressing buttons and messing up. But I don't know. I know my market well enough to know when something is off, right? And if I think something's off, I'll start talking to the passengers. Like I picked up a student. I said, yo, the student's gone. And he's like, yeah, but graduation is this weekend. And sometimes you're gonna learn events by talking to people in your car. So make sure you're doing that. I need that to stop happening. Okay. If you want the spreadsheet, I have it available. I'm gonna run a deal on it soon when I get my website going. It should be maybe in a week. And you guys will be able to get this at a very cheap rate forever. But I made another spreadsheet that should I show you guys that spreadsheet? Yeah, you know what? Sure, I'll show you part of it. Something I'm practicing with my wife is we have a budget. We have a plan for how much money we want to spend every month. And something that I'm doing with my wife is that at the end of the month, we need to go back and look at it to see how we did, right? If you don't do that last part, it's kind of irrelevant. So I made a spreadsheet for that. It shows my household income and my household expenditure. And then it's not done yet, but when it is done, I'll also do that for Rideshare. I know that my name has been called in conversations for not focusing on profits, and I want to start. I've decided that in order to eliminate the misinformation and disinformation about how I run my business, I'm just going to become more transparent with you guys, right? So I'm going to show you guys the actual numbers. I'm going to start showing you guys my bank account. I'm going to start showing you guys the income, the outgo, and I made a spreadsheet to start that process. And I'll show you what I have so far. Let me go and find it. Of course, Um, I'm not the only person in this relationship. I have a wife, and I will only share what she is comfortable with me sharing. And that kind of has been some of the stopgap, some of the reasons why I haven't been sharing my bank account, because I'm not the only person on that bank account. But we spoke about it. She initially had, like, maybe a year, 2 years ago, she had issues with people knowing how much she made. But that information is now publicly available because she passed the threshold where when you work with this thing, once you make over a certain amount, it's publicly available. So she has now become okay with me sharing more information. But if I'm ever restrictive on sharing certain information, just know it's because me and my wife haven't agreed that that is okay, and I'm okay with that. I will share as much as she's willing to let me share, and that's just what it is. You know, the rules we set in our relationship take priority over how much I share with you guys, and that's just the reality of it. I'm not the only person in this relationship. So let me see. So this is not fully completed yet. However, um, I haven't included my gas spending because I have a specific account just for gas spending. I have a Lyft debit card, and I put money on that debit card. So there's income going to that debit card, and then there's spending happening on that debit card. I haven't gotten around to that yet, and there's just some other things that haven't made it to this spreadsheet yet. Let me zoom in for you guys. Okay, so over here on the left side, I have like a bunch of categories, right? And I categorize them based off of what they are. So you have like car wash, my Patreon income, my YouTube income. So I'm also gonna start sharing my creator income. You see, I eat at Wendy's. I eat at Wendy's way too much, and that's something I'm trying to fix this month. Um, we yeah. So I look at all my bank statements and I put them all in here. I put the amount in. I put, hey, is this a business expense or is this a personal expense? You know, and then I categorize them all too, so that I can later come back over here. Keep pressing things that I shouldn't press. So I can come back over here and create categories to like break down different things. So and eventually I'll make this publicly available. But for now, I still got to finish it. Oh my god. Okay, so the income. This is for April, right? So total income. This isn't 100% accurate, but it's ballpark. Everything, all right. Everything here isn't 100% accurate, but it's real ballpark. It's real close. There's some things missing here or there, but it's accurate. So income for the household, and this is the month I had my car accident, right? This is the month where I wasn't able to drive as much because of things that related to my car accident. So our income was $8,555.39. Our expenses, household, was $4,459.56. I think that's pretty good. We have some opportunity to decrease that, as and you'll see as I go through this list. But the net is $4,095.83. And I even put an expense ratio in here, right? To make it very easy for everyone to see that, hey, when we make money, we only spend 52% of it. I think that's pretty good. Of course, I'm in the stage of I'm paying off debt. So anything that's over our expenses is typically going to debt. That's just what it is. So you're seeing here where we're having about $4,000 left over. That's going to go towards debt payments. But once I'm debt free and I don't have those payments, like it's going to be so game changing. I can't wait till I get there. I know I'm being made fun of across the internet for this, but I like I know what I'm doing isn't normal. I know having debt is normal. I know having car payments is normal, but I'm starting to see the benefits of paying off my debt already, right? Like I had car payment, she had a car payment, I had credit card payments, credit cards are paid off, cars are paid off, and I'm starting to see how much money is just left over at the end of every month before I pay off my debt, right? And there's a lot of talks with student loans right now. My brother, he just got his student loans paid off, so I haven't had this conversation with my wife yet. But I think what I'm gonna do is, until elections are over, I don't think I'm gonna pay into student loans anymore. But I'm just gonna rack up that money, right? So because if I'm able to get them, I don't think I will get them paid for, And nor is this a conversation about is that okay or is it not okay. But if it happens, it happens. I'm going to be thankful for it. So until elections happen, I think that I'm just going to stack the money. So you guys will see me stack the money. But the reason why I wasn't sharing my bank account previously, which I've explained this so much, is because at the end of the month, I dump all of my money into my debt. And I've been doing this for a while now. But anyways, so I created a category for wasteful spending. So it's just where when I'm going through my transactions, I can say, all right, we shouldn't be spending money on this, or this wasn't in the budget. And it's easy. It's for us to be able to say we wasted $761.49 last month doing things that we shouldn't have done. Right. So that's just it's an easy talking point for me and my wife. I know it says personal $7,027. I sorry. I haven't finished the math on that. Like I have to like come in here and create the functions and work them out, and it's not done. It's incomplete, right? So, but I'm gonna have wasteful spend for personal, right? So that'll be for the household, and I'm gonna have wasteful spend for business because even in my business accounts, and they're not really business accounts, they're just checking accounts that I use for business to help track things. Even in those accounts, I'm still wasting money. Both I waste more money on YouTube stuff than I do on rideshare stuff. But I will say, knowing that I'm gonna do this next month has already improved my spending for this month. There's a bunch of things I want to get for my car that I'm holding off on, and I actually want to start creating a budget for my rideshare business. So I can say, okay, here's how much money we can spend on things that we order from Amazon, on like air fresheners or car mats or whatever. And I think that because of the nature of rideshare, our expenses can fluctuate a lot. We do have our monthly expenses, but we do have expenses that fluctuate. And I think that not a lot of drivers are budgeting for rideshare, including myself. And I think that there's a lot for us to learn, gain, and save by starting to do that. So I'm going to make a spreadsheet too that can help us budget for our rideshare business. I'm going to have a personal budget because I do think that we're doing rideshare because of our personal budget, right? We're doing rideshare to make income because there's a gap in our personal budget that isn't being filled by our employee job, or there's just money that we need to make because of our personal expenses. And what I found is that a lot of time, people who struggle financially don't even have a budget, right? And they say that you can't budget your way out of debt. And I agree that you cannot budget your way out of debt or budget your way out of poverty, but the budget is the first step, right? The budget is so important because it literally tells you to the specific dollar and penny how much money you need to make or how much money you need to save. And not a lot of people are doing it, right? I believe that no matter how much money you have, you should have a budget, whether you're poor, especially if you're poor, or whether if you're rich. Even we hear all the time about people making over $100,000 who feel poor, and it's spending, right? Depending on your city, but it's usually the spending. Either you're spending too much or you're not making enough. And the best way to figure that out is with a budget. So if you don't have a budget, I'm talking to you. Get up, you start with a budget. When my wife and I first started our budget, we failed for like the first 2 3 months because what we think we spend on paper is usually a lot less than what we actually spend in reality. But I'm gonna make videos going through budgets and things like that a little more. So we're not gonna get too deep into it here. We can just continue through this list. All right. So for income summary, I have them kind of categorized. So for rideshare, it's $4,023.02. That's with me having the accident. So that number would have been higher if I were able to if I stayed consistent, didn't get into the accident, didn't have to like go to court, take time off to like handle certain things. That number would be higher. But I'm still proud of it, right? I'm still proud that despite the fact that I had a situation that lasted about 2 weeks happen, I was still able to make what I consider to be pretty good money, especially for where I live. Um, the creator income, that's YouTube, that's $937. That's from Patreon, that's from YouTube ads, that's from affiliate links, right? I have a couple of things like Solo. If you click on it, I get like $15 or something like that. It's not a lot, but it adds up over time. And I've mentioned this in the past, but let's use the numbers that are here. Let's say you know, our expenses are $4,500. if I'm responsible for half of that, and that's not necessarily how money works in my house, but if I'm responsible for half of that, then I would need what, 2,250 ish dollars of creator income to replace my rideshare income to live at my current living standards, right? That's kind of cool, right? I'm about halfway there, a little less than halfway. So for me, my goal is to figure out how I can drive less rideshare overall and do more YouTube, right? And that cross point is probably a year away, where when I'm debt free, my expenses will be a lot lower and my YouTube income, hopefully by then, is higher. So we're trying to bridge that gap in order to not do rideshare as much. And going back to the question of the stream, which is like, what do you want to do? Like beyond rideshare. It's not going to be a 1 day thing. You're not going to wake up one day and go make $1,000. You're going to wake up. You're probably going to spend $200 on an idea that might not work. You might fail. It might not, but you got to build it. You got to figure out how much money you need to survive, and then make sure you're always hitting that number with rideshare, right? That's the starting point. The next point is, how do I start making money with that thing I always wanted to do, so I can start weaning myself off rideshare, right? Even when I'm debt free, the plan isn't going to be just to stop rideshare unless, YouTube takes off. Even then, I don't think that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging. I think that rideshare will always be part of my financial trajectory in one shape or form, but I might just do weekend, right? I might become a weekend warrior. I might stop driving on the weekdays. I might just only drive when it's busy. Shoot, I'm moving to Vegas. I might get a black car and only take private rides and just make videos about that if I can justify it financially. So it's not black or white. It's not cold or hot. It's a scale, and you have to like know the numbers on the scale in order to move on to that next step. So we're gonna start like focusing on that a little more, especially with the spreadsheet. And then yeah, so you can see my wife's income, and she's cool with me sharing it. We spoke about it. She's salary, so that's what she makes every month. So we're doing pretty good. The goal that I asked and we failed this month is, I really want to keep our spending to her income, right? If we can keep our spending to her income, that means every dollar that I make beyond my expenses of my rideshare business can go towards debt, right? So if I need to make 10K a month to get debt free, then I could do that, right? If we keep our expenses at her income level, which we failed at. So we'll work on it, right? And even when I was a district manager or a store manager, what I found is, when you talk about numbers, people start caring about the numbers, right? We had a metric where, let me zoom in so you guys see my eyeballs a little bit, right? So we're gonna talk about pizza a little bit. I used to be a pizza store manager, and there was a metric that was always pushed on us, that they wanted us to make pizzas in 15 minutes or less from start to finish, right? When an order pops up on the screen, we have 15 minutes to put that pizza together, throw it in the oven, and depending on your oven takes like 8 minutes for the pizza to cook. And then we would need to take it out the oven, cut it up, box it out, and then, get it all together. And we want to do that in 15 minutes, right? I was really good at my job. I became the person who district managers sent to stores that were not doing well to fix them. That's just that I was good at that. It was fun. It was hard when there's a store that's not working, but it's not the point. I learned that if you want people to make pizzas in under 15 minutes every single day, you gotta show them that number. Here's the percentage of of pizzas that got done on time. Why? Right? And it's not to beat them over the head with it. It's a talking point. It's like, hey, this is what the goal is. We're not gonna be perfect. We're gonna fail sometimes, but knowing your number creates conversations. It creates strategy. It says, okay, it rained today, and we weren't able to keep up with pizza. Okay, so then what's the solution? Does that mean I need to have someone else come in? Does that mean we need to start prepping earlier? Like, numbers aren't the end all be all, right? Especially when it comes to mileage tracking. And this is where the analogy intertwines. People, you can make money and not track your mileage, but I'm willing to bet you will save more money, and make better decisions about when to make money if you are tracking your numbers, because you have the talking points. You can look at it and say, okay, when the college students are gone, my hourly average has decreased, so maybe I need to figure out, like, change when I'm driving. Instead of only driving at night, maybe I need to drive in the morning until these high schoolers are out. I'm just kind of making stuff up here, but numbers are really, really important. And I just wanted to stress that to you guys. So I'm happy to have these talking points moving forward. And every month I'm gonna share my overall expense ratio. Like, what percent, if I make $10,000 with Rideshare, what percentage of that is going towards expenses? Because the claim is that I'm living above my means and that I'm unprofitable, and I'm gonna start proving that that's just not true, right? So that's what inspired me to make this spreadsheet. And you can see the expense summaries right here. You can see car maintenance, $31.99. I don't like. Of course, I could look. This is automatically being pulled from all of these categories. So, but external eating, $479. We're not supposed to be eating out. It was my wife's birthday. I took her out, but most of this is probably from me. We do have a budget for it. I have like a $75 catch-all budget where I can spend $75 on whatever I want, and I think I'm spending too much of it on Wendy's. But I will say, this past weekend, I spent $0 eating out. I've been making my food, peanut butter sandwiches, some nuts, some cheese, and taking it with me. It's saving me money. And I'm not going to lie, this spreadsheet is like one of the factors in my. I know that I got to come before you guys publicly and show this to you guys. And I'm like, man, I really want to improve this number. So if I want to do that, I have to start making sandwiches. So again, this is just like tying into my analogy with Pizza Hut. When you focus on certain numbers, you're going to be more likely to take action that like represent improving those numbers, right? And if you're not tracking your numbers at all, you don't even know what you need to improve. You just have a feeling that it's not enough, but you need to justify that feeling with some numbers. So here it is, right? Gas, $73.86. This doesn't include my gas spending, right? Because I didn't add my Lyft spending card to this yet. So this is just from my wife's personal gas spending. We have the groceries, $472. So for one way that I'm going to be able to fix my external eating out is that our grocery budget, I think it's at $350. So we overblew it a little bit here by about $120. But I can look at external eating and say, okay, we spent $500 eating out, right? We did blow over the grocery budget by $120. Let's take $200 and put it towards groceries, and let's start buying things that Tristan can eat while he's driving, right? So yes, I did increase my grocery budget by $200, but I decreased my eating out by $500. So the net savings there would be for what, $250. So this ties back to what I was saying earlier about how when you make a budget, you're gonna fail, right? You might fail for a month, 2, 3, and we did too. But once we start understanding like the habits of what's of reality, and we can adjust for it. And inflation is happening in the grocery stores, so the budget we started with isn't the budget that we have now. But unless you have the budget and you're reviewing the budget, you never really make these connections, and these connections are really important. You can see insurance, $261, and that's not just car insurance, that's medical insurance and car stuff. You can see household, our mortgage is like $950, and then if we have like household related expenses, they go there too. We miscellaneous phone bill, $342.51. That's high because we pay for our phone bills either 6 months in advance or a year in advance, depending on what we're doing. I think this is 6 months with Mint Mobile. So I'll tell you guys how much that works out to per month. But because we pay a month in advance, it's cheaper. So it was $342 divided by 6. So about $57 a month, which is pretty good. And then it's listed under vacation, but I have a cousin that's getting married in Jamaica, and we No, that's not what this is from. There's something happening. We try not to go on vacation while paying off debt, but I have a big family. There's always events and things that are happening. Oh my god, subscriptions are really high. A lot of this is YouTube. Like I pay subscription for Premiere Pro. I got to pay a subscription for like where I get my B-roll. Like, you know, if you guys see me make a video and you guys see like someone that's not me in one of the clips, it's typically, you know, I have to pay for that. I pay for a subscription. I pay for a music subscription. Um, pay for a couple of different subscriptions. And, you know, some of it is personal, some of it is business related. But subscriptions are probably the area most food and subscriptions is probably where most of us have money that we can save. But yeah, that's it. That's it for this. I am going to check on the comments and then we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at solo. We haven't been doing that too much lately. And then we do have some news we want to go through, right? I want to talk about, you know, Tesla, the robo taxis, how I'm feeling about it. We have some updates with Minneapolis. I'm honestly tired of talking about them, but it's important for us to keep talking about them. Now, Massachusetts, nailed it. I said that pretty well. Massachusetts, they have their own issues similar to Minneapolis that we're going to go over a little bit. But before we touch on those topics, we are going to go back to the chat. Melvin says, if it takes more than 50 rides to hit a bonus to make, that amount is definitely not worth doing it. I disagree. You can't say that without knowing the amount, right? And I'm also not the type of person, I think that drivers shouldn't, you shouldn't draw hard lines in the sand. I think that there's certain times where certain strategies are okay. You know, you're saying 50, like 50 ride, 85 rides. Okay. 85 rides. Let me get the calculator. 85 divided by 3. That's 30 rides a day. That's, to me, that's not a lot. I can honestly average on a, like, if it's not super busy, I can average 3 rides per hour pretty consistently. And that's not everyone market. You gotta know your market well enough. So that would take like 9.5 hours on an average day, right? Even when there's like gaps in between pickups and things like that. I don't like the idea that, hey, as soon as a ride challenge is more than 50, like how do you even just come to that conclusion, right? Where did you pull numbers that said once this number is past 50, like if you do 51, it's not worth it? Like how were you able to even reach that conclusion? I'm curious. I'm not judging you for it. I know sometimes I can have a little judgmental tone in my voice, but I'm moving towards being curious on how people are arriving at the things that they believe. Because what I'm realizing is even like uh gig tuber to another gig tuber, it's not even that we disagree with the thing. It's there's disagreement with how to do the thing, right? For example, I think doing private rides is cool. There's just disagreement about the how, right? I think you should do it legally, right? I think you should do it without debt. And then there's disagreement about that, right? So that's fine. I'm just curious to how you arrive at the conclusion that 50 rides, anything above 50 rides is too much, right? And then how do you justify that across different markets, right? Here's the verdict. Appreciate it. Nira says 100K is possible. Good luck. It is possible. I'm behind. And I'm trying to fix that. So we'll see. I'm a little behind. Life happens. And we'll see how close I can get. Here's the verdict. Says, can you look up the top rated driver in Tampa? Because I can't hit above $900. What am I doing wrong? It's absolutely no surges here. Okay. I got my notepad and I do not have a pen. I'm going to go and grab a pen so that as I'm going through these comments, I don't forget where people want me to look. And if you have any suggestions, feel free to give them to me. This is not a promise, but once I pull them up in solo, we'll see. All right, so I have Tampa. Okay. This stuff says Florida is bad. I've driven there. Tampa specifically, it's not you. I think I struggled out 2000 and it really wasn't worth it. I know some parts of Florida are weird. I've driven in Florida. I've actually driven in Key West as well, Miami, Orlando. I think that with Florida, you might have to be really in tune to like events, right? Like if you need to go to Orlando because Taylor Swift's in town, that's something you might have to consider. But we'll definitely look at the numbers and see what's up. Here's the verdict says I don't track my mileage. I just give it to my tax guy and say, hey, make some stuff up, write some stuff off. Been working. Be careful. All right. We're all grown adults. You do whatever you want, but you don't want to get audited, right? You want to make sure you can prove whatever is being said. And the government is increasing their audits, the IRS. It's supposed to be for people who make a lot of money, but be careful. And then on top of that, like, I don't want to say, I'm working on a video that goes into it deeper. So that's all I'm going to say. This stuff says I have a great tax lady. I make too much. I pay $3,000 every quarter in taxes. Is that what you're saying? 3 quarter, 4, 12, so 12 grand. If you're making 100K, I think that's fine. I do think you're on track to making 100K. Well, you only work half the year, so we'll see. But that number sounds a little high, but it's not crazy. I don't think it's crazy. Cry is free though. I have money to make. Mike B says, I think my tax guy is going to get me jammed up. I got a new motor in my car and he wrote that off $6,000. I got a refund, but I think they're going to call me and say I couldn't do that. If you put the expenses, my phone is buzzing in the background. Hold on, let me throw it on the floor. Okay. All right, so I'm assuming you think you're gonna get jammed up because he put the standard mileage deduction on top of the $6,000 expense. I'm assuming that's what it is. And what I would say is you should do both routes. This is why I like TurboTax. Even if you go to a tax professional, going through TurboTax gives you something to compare what your tax professional is doing, and you don't have to pay for the comparison, right? You can do everything in TurboTax, and they don't charge you until you file, and you don't ever have to file. So, Mike, what I would say is jump on TurboTax, man. Put in your information, and you can play around with it yourself. You can say, okay, let me pick the standard. In fact, TurboTax will ask you questions and then determine what's the best thing. So if you just feed it all of your accurate information, TurboTax is going to say, okay, we think that the standard mileage deduction is better because if you didn't use the standard mileage deduction, you would get less money back. So do that. Don't trust and verify is one of the most important things I walked away from my management career with. Is if someone says they do something, you still got to go and verify that they did it. And what will happen is people who lie, right? Not everyone lies, but people who lie will know that this guy is going to verify what I'm doing, even if it's been right for the last 100 times. So it makes them do it correctly too. So if your tax guy knows, hey, I'm going to plug these numbers in to see if these things are accurate, and I'm going to compare those numbers to the service, and I'm going to compare the price of TurboTax to the price that you're giving me, they're going to have an incentive to, one, do it correctly, and then two, to do it financially efficiently. So I would, if you think you're going to get jammed up, always understand the government's coming for you, right? I absolutely hate getting in trouble for something someone else did. Like that's one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't want to get in trouble because of someone else, right? That's why I don't rely on Uber and Lyft. End of your tax statement. They're cool to look at, but I'd rather track my own mileage. And if my mileage tracker, or I made a mistake and I messed up and I got in trouble for it, fine. That's just what it is. I got to learn from that. But if I'm going to get in trouble because of an accountant or because of Uber and Lyft, no. That's not okay for me. Queen Brown says, hi, Tristan. I'm driving for Uber now, and the app stops the podcast when I get near the passenger. I wonder if it's because I turned on record my ride. That could be what's happening. Sorry, that could be what's happening. I know my phone is capable of recording. Sorry, man, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, my phone is capable of recording, even if it's playing something. So I'm curious then, if is it just me? Do you usually play music when you're not driving around with me in your speakers? I'm super curious about that. Also, by the way, I talk faster than my mouth can move in my brain. I'm gonna stop cursing on the podcast as much as possible because I know that passengers will be in your cars sometimes if you guys are listening. So I'm gonna make this as family safe as possible. Mike B says wasteful spend is the best line on that sheet. Mine would be through the roof. What would be what's your guilty pleasure wasteful spend? Mine is clearly Wendy's. Clearly Wendy's. I see Mel Wire has some restricted messages. I don't know what you were trying to say, but can you try to give us the clean version? I didn't do it. I don't have any mods, so I didn't do it. It must have been automatically done. I don't know. Mike B says got that personal property bill that needs to go. Personal property bill. I don't know what you mean. Let me know what you mean. Ron says Tristan, if I was in your situation, married, no kids, and drove as many hours as you do, I would probably make 10% more than you. Maybe. um yeah, I'm trying to use this time where, especially that I have no kids, as well as possible. Even being married, I still try to cut time out to hang out with my wife once or twice a week. Like tonight, once this podcast is over, I won't go and drive. It's Tuesday, it's slow. I'll just go and hang out with her. And I try to set time to hang out with myself, right? Like I like playing games. I play League of Legends. I play Apex. Um, and even though sometimes I'm behind, so let's talk personal a little bit. In fact, let me read this last comment and let's talk personal a little bit. Mike B says, if you're doing solo, can you please look at Virginia Beach and Virginia? Okay, let me write that down. V Beach. I have come to the conclusion that I've come to the conclusion that I'm probably going to be busy for the rest of my life. I will be bored out of my mind if I was ever, up to date on my to do list. I think that I always give myself a little more than I can chew off, and I'm okay with that. So I've accepted that if I want to waste time, that's okay. I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm just going to give myself permission to waste time. So, if I'm doing a lot of driving, doing a lot of YouTubing, and I just want to just spend 3 hours and just play games mindlessly, even though I have things that need to get done. I'm gonna give myself permission to do that, and it helps me get more work done in the long time without like burning out. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of like scheduling time to waste. So if you put in a lot of hours at work, but you're missing out on your family, missing out on your friends, just try to schedule it and just be okay. Like I have friends who, they're off on weekends, they work on weekdays, but for me, the weekends is where I make my money. So if I want to go hang out with them, I'm gonna have to make sacrifices to the money, and you know that's just what it is, right? I'm not. Yes, I have aggressive financial goals, but I'm not behind on my my lifestyle. If I was, then I wouldn't go and hang out. But I will indefinitely probably always be busy. If I decide to become a full time YouTuber, there is always a video that I can make. There's always a video that I can edit. There's always a video I can script, and I can choose to infinitely be busy. But I want to make sure I'm scheduling time for friends, scheduling time for families, and you guys should do that too. Unless you're struggling, like if you're struggling because you're behind on bills, you got to know life it. You just got to know life it, come up with a plan, and execute. All right, so we're gonna jump over to solo. I got to figure out how to navigate there. All right, Windows link. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're gonna start with my area, Charleston. Let me make sure I'm not. Hold on. And I gotta reopen the app. Okay, here we go. All right, so I've been, in order to combat misinformation, disinformation, people lying on me, I've been posting my screenshots of my earnings every day. So if I go out and I drive, take a screenshot, I post it on YouTube under the community tab, and I also do it on Twitter. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, Tristan Thomas YT, if you want to follow me there. But someone mentioned that my market is better than I lead on, and my market has its moments. It has its time of the year. It has its slowdown. I don't think it's top 10, but you can see like right here, and this, I really like Solo for this. The average Charleston driver across the board, across Lyft, Uber, whatever platforms I drive for. I guess it's just Lyft. They average $22.59 per hour. I average $43.53 per hour. So yes, my market has the market's not a bad market. I don't think it's the best market. It's not a bad market. What I like showing here, right? What I really like about Solo is that I'm able to say, sure, my market has benefits, but other people in my market are making $22.59 an hour. I'm making $43.53 an hour. There is a gap in strategy between those two. So yes, you have to have a good market, but when you're looking at Solo and you're looking at how much money you're making, are you the average or are you better than average? And we should be striving to be better than average. Not every market's going to have the ability to be significantly better than average. It just depends on your strategy. So my strategy lets me earn almost $20 more per hour than the next person. I'm gonna give you guys a quick story. So I went and hung out with a friend on a Saturday. I think it was the week before last, and I was drinking, and I didn't want to risk driving home, and so I called a Lyft. It was about $20. I tipped him about 10. Total ended up being like $35, but whatever. I told him that he made a mistake picking me up. It was Saturday night, prime time, like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And I said, man, you should be downtown. I was hanging out in an area that was like 20, 25 minutes away from downtown where the surges are. And I told him, you made a mistake picking me up. I'm glad you picked me up, but you made a mistake. And then I started giving him the game. So he's probably one of these drivers that were making $22 an hour, just doing the things that he shouldn't really be doing. But if he takes my advice and applies it, he's gonna probably start making amounts closer to what I make, right? And I didn't have enough time to give him the entire game, but I said, yo, you should really be downtown. You should really be focused on doing this. You should really be focused on doing that. And traded phone numbers with him. He's called me a few times, said he had some car troubles. We, worked it out, got it situated, made a friend. Always glad to make a friend. But you can say that my market is good, but you can't say that everyone is taking advantage of my market in a way that I am, right? In the way that I teach. So, um, I think if you're in a slow market, strategy becomes even more important than if you're in a busy market, right? In a busy market, you can kind of not use strategy and still make it out okay. But if you're in a slow market, where you don't get a lot of surges, you need to double down on figuring out when a surge is popping up. When do I need to be driving? You can't afford to drive when you want to drive. You have to drive when the money dictates it. So don't let the fact that my market is a good market, it's not the best market, it's not a bad market. Don't let that be a mental block to why a strategy that I'm using can't be used where you are. And I see that a lot. And I kind of, it's unfortunate that I have to convince people that, you know, okay, here's a better way to say it is market matters, but what you do in your market matters most, right? The strategy you use in your market matters more than your market, right? Because market is baseline. The goal is to be better than baseline. And you just have to figure out how to be better than baseline, right? I don't want the people watching this to be average, right? If you want to make average money, that's okay, right? Like if you want to make $500 a week, that's fine, but I don't want you to do it in the average time that someone else has to do it. So I don't want you to be average in that perspective. This is not about total money. This is about making money as efficiently as possible with what you have in the market you have. So I always want to make that distinction because it can get lost in translation very easily. So we're gonna go over to insights. So this is from my market. You can see in Charleston, the average Uber driver made $27 an hour last week, which is down 3%. The average Lyft driver made $22 an hour, down 4%. You have DoorDash, $16 an hour. Uber Eats, $16 an hour. You have Instacart at $41 an hour. When it comes to Instacart, you should cut that in half because they don't really track you once your delivery's over, right? So this tracking is a little weird. So it's about $20 an hour. Same thing for Spark. And I might actually start doing some groceries because once groceries suck if you're in traffic. And usually groceries is from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., right? When traffic is there. But when the kids are out of school, the college kids and the grade school kids are out of school, there's a lot less traffic. And that's when delivering groceries becomes more profitable. And even if I can't make like if I can make $35 delivering groceries, but I'm missing out on $40 delivering people, but I need a break from people, I'll do it. If it, sometimes you're just having an off day and customer service is a big part of being a Uber Lyft driver. And if you just don't want to talk to people, having other options, even if they don't pay as well, it's nice. During the winter months, I do a little more groceries because I'm in a tourist town, and if tourists aren't here and the students aren't here, it sucks. So yeah, certain times my market's good, but there's times when my market's bad too. And this past winter was real rough. I don't think Uber and Lyft is gonna get better, so I'm expecting this winter to be real rough too. So you know, keep that in mind as you're out there earning. Anyways, I'm gonna go to the leaderboard. So this is the leaderboard for Charleston for last week. You can see I came fifth, and I only worked really the weekend, right? I did work on Monday. It wasn't for long, um, but I really only worked the weekend, and I still ranked fifth. You can see Nasef here. He's in the chat. He made $2,592. Solo doesn't track income on the same timeline that Uber and Lyft do, right? Solo might track your income from midnight Sunday till 11:59 the next week Sunday, but Uber and Lyft might start their day at 5 a.m. So I know he made more than this. I think he made like almost 3 grand, like 27. So it's not the full story, but number one, 2,592. Number two, 2,319. Usually it's just me and the Seth making over 2 grand in my market. So I'm glad that other people are starting to step up and make some money. I don't know who this is. Made $1,560. Someone from Myrtle Beach came apparently, made $1,257, and then here I am, $1,250. So pretty decent. And then let's look at what drivers made across the nation. Right, so you can see I ranked 507th across the nation. Philadelphia came in number one, somehow made $5,960 with DoorDash. I don't know if there's some like hacking going on there, or if like you got some good tips, or did it snow or something. Like I don't know. I'm curious to how that is possible. um I'll probably research it after the stream, see if I can find any leads. But San Francisco, $3,602 with Uber. That's one of the areas where drivers complain the most about not being able to make enough money. Probably related to the cost of living, but I think that some of these California markets can people are doing it, and I don't know how. Right? It's here, right? $3,602. And they're number two in the nation. And of course, guys, this is just people who have this app. There are probably people who might be making more money than these people, but they don't have the app, so we're not going to see that information. But this is the best information that we have so far. So Portland, $2,990. Bloomington, Bedford, I don't even know where that is, $2,799. Seattle, $2,796. Then we have Nassef, sixth in the nation. Charleston, $2,592. We have Riverside, $2,493. Manchester, $2,396. Riverside, $2,376. And New York coming in 10th. Usually there's a lot more New York and a lot more California in here, but New York's coming at $2,322. There's some other people: Charleston, Jacksonville, Knoxville, Orlando. Someone in Orlando, Florida, made $2,306 just with Lyft. Right, Jacksonville, Florida, $2,258. Los Angeles, $2,228. Nashville, $2,219. Washington D.C., over 2,000. Bay Area, over 2,000. Pittsburgh, over 2,000. Dallas, people say they can't make money in Dallas, over 2,000 just with Lyft. Ithaca, I think that's upstate New York. You have Atlanta, $2,158 using Lyft, Uber, and DoorDash, and he got himself a picture. Dallas, 2,000. Fresno, 2,000. New York, 2,000. Vegas, 2,000. Salt Lake, 2,000. LA, 2,000. Atlanta, 2,000. Fort Collins, I don't know where that is, 2,000. San Francisco, 2,000. New York, 2,000. Atlanta, 2,000. Right? And of course, we don't know how much money, how much time these guys are spending on the road, and we don't know what kind of cars they're making. And just for everyone watching, I have base Uber, base Lyft. I know Nassef drives Premier. He has a Tesla. So he's doing his, he's grinding in his Tesla. In fact, Nassef, you probably should make a YouTube channel with your Tesla lifestyle, right? How you deal with charging, because you put the hours in. He'll put like 70 hours in, and he'll do what he has to do. But I know charging has to play a factor into that. So, you know, that I think people would like that. We got some Hawaii in here, Phoenix. Okay, so I do have a list of some requests. Someone wants to see Tampa. I hate scrolling on this thing, guys. It's terrible. And all right, Tampa's at the bottom, and the T's. All right, Tampa. All right, so number one, Tampa, DoorDash, $1,912. Number two, Spark, DoorDash, $1,831. Number three, Uber and Lyft for $1,656. We have people with Uber, just $1,390. That's number four. Fifth comes at $1,360, doing Uber Eats and Uber. Tampa, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, $1,332. Someone with Instacart made $1,295. I hate shopping. I know that I think that grocery shopping has a high learning curve because there's so many different grocery stores. But if you're able to learn where things are in grocery stores, I think that would significantly speed up one's ability to make money. I just never put in enough time to even try that. I hate shopping. I like Walmart Spark because you don't have to shop. They'll shop for you and just give you the stuff. That's more my speed. But I do assume that someone who knows grocery stores very, very well will be able to make money faster than someone who doesn't. So there's a skill gap there that could be exploited. Who knows? I'm not going to do it. Maybe I will in the future when I'm out of debt, but it's not on the list of things to do right now. So overall, there's about 15 people that have made over $1,000, not just with Uber, you know, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, different things. So I think you said you're struggling to crack 1,000. So I will say these numbers are a little soft compared to some of these other markets, right? So I'm not going to dismiss what you're saying. And it looks like food might be a better thing for Tampa. So, you know, open up your horizons, start multi-apping, see what other people are doing. I know I make more money delivering people than I do delivering food consistently in my market, but that might change, right? You might have a lot of tourists who are like at Airbnbs in Tampa or whatever, and maybe they need deliveries, groceries delivered. And one business you could do is you can like reach out to some of these property managers and be like, hey, when you have a new client, send me their contact information, and then speak to that person and see if they want their groceries stocked before they arrive, right? You can coordinate with the property manager. So, okay, this client is coming at 10 a.m. I'm going to do their grocery shopping with the list and money they gave me, and I'm going to stock up their fridge and all that. You don't even have to meet them, right? That's a really good idea if you ever want to do some like grocery delivery. And I think that you're in a decent market for it, depending on the time of the year. You know, I've been to Tampa. You guys have a little bit of a tourist scene, nothing crazy, just because you have Orlando, Miami, but I know that the Airbnbs by the beaches, and that could be a pretty good idea. And it's not an original idea for me. It's an idea that I've seen other people do in my market that I'm just not interested in. So it's something that you can think about as well. And now we have Virginia and Virginia Beach. We got to go down to the V's. You guys are just like, you guys know how I feel about this. You guys are just requesting things that are at the bottom. All right, here we go. Let's do Virginia Beach first. All right, so number one driver in Virginia Beach, $2,121. I remember looking at Virginia Beach a couple months ago. It was a lot softer than this, way softer. So it looks like it's the season for Virginia Beach. They did Uber. Number two did Uber as well, $1,764. Number three did Lyft. Here's a picture, $1,630. Um, let's see how many people made. We have DoorDash, $1,210. We have 13 people who made over $1,000 in Virginia Beach. Let's take a quick look at Virginia. Okay, why don't I see Virginia? What's up with that? Or I guess what town in Virginia? I guess hold on. Let me go back to the comments. If we're gonna do solo, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Okay, so you just wanted Virginia. I saw Virginia Beach and Virginia in my brain. Okay, so yeah, there you go. I'll take maybe one or two more requests. I'm gonna check in on the comments to see what you guys are saying. Mike B says personal property tax is what I meant, and for the wasteful spending, it's meatballs and marinara sauce. $100 is not good. I'm fat. You must really like your meatballs, but you said you're in Virginia Beach. If I'm ever driving that way, since I do drive to New York frequently, I'm gonna see if I can get a sandwich off of you. Property taxes here, I don't even know what they are. I gotta talk to my wife, but they're not bad. It I think it's built into our mortgage payment, but I'll talk to my wife when she gets home and see what she's saying. Here's the verdict. Says, in your opinion, what's the best gas station or rest spot to relax to drink some coffee when taking breaks? I don't know where you are, but 100% I'm gonna say Parker's Kitchen. I used to I was a district manager with them, so I might be biased, but their bathrooms are usually very very clean, very very important for me. I make my coffee at home, so I'm not judging anyone based off of coffee. I'll show you guys, right? I'll show you guys. Let's have some fun. Ah, okay, let's go full cam. All right, so this is my coffee jar, right? I think I spent like $15 on it, maybe. It holds a good amount. The way it works is that you ground up your coffee, you put it in here, and then you put it like in here. I guess I can just open it up. Actually, no, because this is now dirty. This has coffee in it. But yeah, you put it in there with the coffee, let it steep or soak for. I like to do it for 5 hours, so it doesn't get too bitter. And then I use Jamaican coffee, and then yeah, that's coffee for like the week, coffee for like a week and a half, and you save a lot of money. I will. I'm not gonna bother finding the link right now, but it's on Amazon, 15-20 bucks for this. I got the big one. Um, you won't catch me. Sometimes I'll get coffee from gas stations if I didn't bring coffee. It's not very often, but I also don't use coffee a lot, and I also don't recommend hanging out at gas stations. I don't really recommend hanging out anywhere. You should be working during periods of time where there's not a lot of downtime, and that's not always controllable. Sometimes you need to make your money and it's just slow, and that's just what's happening. But I wouldn't. I think the best gas station to hang out at is probably going to be the thing that's closest to where the rides are, right? So yeah, there are amenities that I like. I like clean bathrooms and this that. I like going somewhere where I'm able to get food or whatever. But if my favorite gas station is out of the way, and it makes it like more difficult to make money, then it's not the best gas station for what I'm trying to do. So there's just some variation to it. And then, gas stations change based off of your region. I don't know where you live. Wawa might be the gas station for you. Uh, Bucky's might be the gas station for you. So I don't know. But what I will say is, if you need to use the bathroom, some places that people forget is that most hotels usually have a bathroom in the lobby. If you have a Waffle House, they're 24 hours. Um, yeah, so it's not always. Gas stations in my city late night aren't even open. I'd have to go to the outskirts to go to like a 24-hour gas station. And of course, you can get gas even if the inside of the store is closed. But most of the gas stations don't stay open. The inside of the stores doesn't stay open late. So I don't know. It can. There's no great answer. I guess this is why you're saying, in my opinion. But my favorite gas station is Parker's. But even then, I don't spend a lot of time at Parker's when I'm out driving. I spend my downtime where bonuses appear. So I've kind of I'm working on this video to give it to you guys, but I've kind of figured out where bonuses appear, like what cross street, like on Main and Columbus is where a bonus usually appears. So if I'm gonna wait, right, because it's slow, I'm waiting where those bonuses will appear. So that's if I'm gonna hang out somewhere, I'm gonna hang out where the bonuses are. No life, no wife. Larper says, show Philly. All right, I'm gonna write this down. I'll show Philly, and then I'll go through the comments, and then after we'll dive into some news, because I can't make more than 1,200 working 7 days a week. All right, I'm gonna write that number down to see what other people are doing. Anthony says, please see about Houston. Houston, I wanted to move to Houston. It was my number 2 spot. I wanted to move to Stafford, Texas. There's no property taxes and no state taxes. And no life, no wife. Philly, please. Okay, so we'll do Philly, we'll do Houston, and then we're gonna move on from solo. Let me find it. All right, so Houston, Philly. Probably should have went. Oh, that's fine. Here we go. Am I tripping? Is there no? I'm tripping. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Philadelphia State. What does that even mean? Why are there 2 Philadelphias? I hope I don't click the wrong one. I'll check both. Wow, that's insane. That's insane. All right, so Philadelphia is the person who made that $5,960 with DoorDash. I'm gonna do a quick search to see if I can find anything that's obvious I Philly DoorDash. I doubt I'm gonna be able to find anything. Reddit. I really want to know how that's even possible. North Philly is home to one of DoorDash's busiest pickup. Hmm. And this is from 2 months. No, let's see. Let me see. Yes, from 2 months ago. Birdbox sends out more than 1,000 deliveries of food boxes via the DoorDash app over twice a week, over 2 hours on each day, averaging around 4,500 a month deliveries. Right? That's not dollars. That's how much deliveries this company is sending out every month. That earns a share. That's not written properly. That earns share a unique distinction during the 4 weekly hours it's giving out senior boxes. Share handles a great number of delivery orders than any other restaurant in the world on the DoorDash app, according to DoorDash executives. So the money he's making is probably tied to this some way, shape, or form. It's probably not the full story, but if you are in Philadelphia and you're struggling to make money, I know sometimes people don't want to cross over from people delivering to food delivery or whatever. I would look into this, right? Um, what I love about Solo is that it shows what's possible. What I hate about it is that it doesn't really explain how. So you do need to figure out this gap. But if you're struggling to make $1,200 on delivering people, but people in your city are making a lot of money on delivering not people, then consider mixing it up, right? Don't become don't become what's the word I'm looking for here? Don't put loyalty in these apps, right? Do the thing that's going to make you the most money. So this is definitely something I want to dive into later. I'm definitely going to like look into this a little more. This Bird Box Times. It's called, the company looks like it's called Share, but this looks like a very interesting thing. It's a food program. I think it's by the city. I'm unsure, right? I'm guessing. This is new information to me. Um, but that's your homework. Next week in here, I want you in here and I want you to tell me what the hell this is and why like it's so big. Like that's your I'm probably gonna know as well, but I want to be able to have a conversation about it. You'll What you learn by being there will always be better than what I'm gonna be able to learn from what I read. And when I'm out of debt, I hope that I'm gonna be able to like go to these places. Like, right, Minneapolis is gonna like kick Uber and Lyft out on July 1st. If I were out of debt and I was chilling financially, I could go there and like understand what the real sentiment is, what the sentiment of what we see online and from articles and things like that aren't always going to match up. So you being in Philadelphia, you have a better way to figure out why this guy is making almost 6 grand on DoorDash. This might be part of it. It might not be, right? This is just what I found. And I think it's up to you to bridge that gap. I'll do as much research as I can, but it would be really dope if even if you just have to show up here one day and start talking to people and seeing what's up, what's going on. See if you can find that driver who made 6 grand. That would be pretty dope, pretty cool. All right, so we're gonna go back over here. Number two out of Philadelphia is Grubhub, $1,779. Number three is Roadie, DoorDash, and Lyft, so a combination for $1,518. Philadelphia, DoorDash again, $1,358. So I'm going to acknowledge we don't know what the fifth ranking Philadelphia driver drove to make money, but we can see that the top 5 drivers have at least delivered food, right? This guy is like the highest Lyft driver here. So maybe delivering people isn't the best thing to do in Philadelphia, but you do have some drivers here. Let's see how many drivers made over $1,000. 17 drivers made over $1,000. Some of it is DoorDash, some of it's Uber Eats. We have some Lyft up here. We have a Spark driver, and we, of course, we don't know how many hours they're working. We don't. They could be working the same amount of hours as you and making similar money to you. We don't. But this is where my interest is peaked right here. DoorDash, $5,960. Either he's cheating, doing something, or he just knows something the rest of us don't. $5,960. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money in 1 week, guys. That's a lot of money. Let's see. Let's see what the previous week looked like. $6,000. This there's something there. There's something that people don't understand that this guy understands, or he's breaking the system, or he's cheating. Like, uh, this is actually pretty insane. Let me see how much money he's made this week so far. This is probably the same person. $500. This week started yesterday. Started Monday. Right? He's made $500 on DoorDash in one day. Um, and it's probably not even the busiest day. You got to figure out who this guy is and do something. You got to figure that out. Like, shoot, maybe I need to move to Philadelphia. I'm not going to do that. Shout out to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, one of my favorite shows. But yeah, figure this out, man. That's your homework. Figure out why this person is consistently making, you know, so much money. I'm definitely want to keep an eye on that. All right. Gonna look at the chat, and then we're gonna move on to some stories. Some stories. 5K, how do they even see it? They should call it Ronnie's fee. I don't. So I feel like at that point, if you're making 5K, I feel like you're probably, like, there's, unless the mob is after him, right? I feel like if you're making 5K, you're in control of when you work and when you don't work, right? Unless you got like loan sharks coming at you hard, he probably knows the hours that are best to work to do that. But that it, I feel like it has to be like I don't understand, man. It must be like a strong tip. I really I want to understand, and I just can't wrap my brain around it. I just can't. No Life says I only do rideshare, can't do deliveries, but occasionally Grubhub. What do you mean? What does can't mean? Like, can't. Rideshare is like typically the highest form of like delivering. It like usually has the highest like stipulations. You have to have a card that's a certain year. You have to have insurance. You have to have a cleaner background record. So I'm curious what you mean by you can't. No Life says I know more than 1.3K is possible, but 5 to 6K is next to impossible, but interesting. Yeah, and so like when I first started my YouTube channel, when I first started doing rideshare, I wasn't making a lot per hour. Like I was averaging like $20 to $25 per hour, but I would grind. I would do like 70, 80 hour weeks, and I'll make videos about them, right? And that's still kind of the case. But uh, part of the conversation I have to have with people is, listen, yes, I work 70 hours to make this amount of money. You don't have to work 70 hours to make the amount of money you want to make. This is just an illustration. This is just an example. If I can teach you to average 30 to 35 to 40 to $45 an hour, but you don't want to work 70 hours, you don't have to. But the fact that I worked 70 hours and made that much money per hour is an indication of what is possible without having to work all those hours. So yeah, we don't know how many hours he's working. He could be working a bunch of hours, but he's probably doing something that's increasing his how much money he's making per hour. So even if you don't want to work all the hours he's working, right? If you figure out his strategy for your budget, it still works, right? You might be able to make 1,300 in one week in a shorter amount of time, freeing up your time to do something else. And that's what the goal is here. So yeah, more than 1.3K. I will say that apart from this one guy who looks like an outlier, it does look like you're making about what everyone else is making. So I would figure out how to how to bridge that gap. I know football season's picking up. Maybe you got to figure out what that is. You got to figure out your strategy for game days. Figure out your strategy for away game days. I know Philly has a couple teams, not just the Eagles, which is what's in my head, but you have events you got to think about. You can think about neighboring cities. Like what time? So I'm assuming you saying you can't must be like time based. Like what times of the day are you usually driving? No Life says I do food occasionally, but not as busy as rideshare. Okay, that's insane. It is insane. No Life says he might be hacking. He might be. He might be. I know that with Walmart Spark, there was a creator who showed that you had people on phones, like waiting at the location, and then like accepting orders on behalf of them, and then they're kind of like networking together and doing things. I really want to know. I just don't have the bandwidth to go there and find out myself. Here's a verdict says with that type of money, I might have to tell my wife I'm driving to Philly for 2 weeks. So that's something I want to do as well. When I'm debt free and I'm kind of more in content creation mode, I might just go spend a week or two in certain cities, set up whatever I have to set up to drive there, and just prove it. Like, oh, this driver said that you can't make this amount of money in this market with what I'm saying, and I just want to go to LA and see what it's really like, because I'm gonna learn that way. What right? What works on, like, what how things look on paper, always drastically different from when you go and do it yourself. So someday that might be my content strategy, but right now it's not. Ronnie Speed TV has 2 racks a week challenge. Yeah, I know. Me and him were supposed to collaborate. I haven't gotten around to it. I haven't really collaborated with anyone, but he's on the radar. I like his hustle. I respect his hustle. A lot of the things that I kind of teach hustle with a purpose, right? He kind of just hustles, which is fine, right? That's not a critique. He encourages people to go out there and make money, for whatever reasons you want to go out there and make money for. Whereas I like to encourage people to go out there and make money for specific reasons. Let's dial in why we want to make this money. And one is not wrong, one is not right. But I do love his energy. I do love what he stands for. And I hate that. I hate that. I hate that hustling with intentionality is like kind of frowned upon. I'm not a huge fan of that. Hey, you forgot Houston. You are correct. I did forget Houston. You are correct. Let me go and scroll forever. Well, it should be at the top, right? All right, hold on. Let me navigate back. My bad, my bad, my bad. All right, so Houston. All right, so the number one driver in Houston did use Uber, only Uber, for $1,755. Number two used Uber Eats and Uber for $1,592. Using Uber Eats to finish ride challenges could be a good tool. Don't do it too much. It might lower your challenges. You don't want to get categorized into food delivery challenges. You want to get categorized into people delivery challenges. But if you're a couple rides off from a challenge, consider doing Uber Eats. Number three is $1,527. That's Uber again. So the top three for Houston is Uber. Number four is DoorDash, $1,429. Number five is Lyft, $1,412. Number six, DoorDash, $1,329. Number seven is Walmart Spark, $1,275. Eighth is Houston Uber, $1,230. Number nine is DoorDash, $1,217. And at number 10 is Lyft Houston, $1,209. So we have over 23, not over, we have about 23 drivers on solo who made over $1,000. So not bad, right? Again, we don't know how many hours these guys are working, don't know the strategy, don't know what kind of cars they're driving, so it's not bad. No Life says Uber doesn't let me do it. They said that I was fraudulently delaying deliveries because I took a longer route. Oof. 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. That's not great. To work that much and make that much, I would say it's not that great. I want to start doing like segments or at least videos where I'm like kind of auditing people, like looking at their the ride histories and things like that. I I hope there's a better way, because that's not great. It's not great. No Life says someone made over 2K in Philly before. I saw it on Ronnie Speed channel. Did he interview him? I know he usually interviews those people. I would go back and see if you could find that interview. From 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. usually. That's not even bad time to drive. I'd be worried about traffic. I don't know what traffic conditions are like there. If you have the ability to try to do, okay, in my market, 2 a.m. is usually where it dies off. So a lot of drivers do go. But if you're willing to wait until about 3:30, 4 a.m., that's when airport pickups will kind of start. So see if there's a airport culture in your city, right? See if on Monday mornings, on Sunday mornings. So, I don't know how many tourists really come to Philly, but see when people are flying. Look at the flight schedules and just see if there's an opportunity to go make money. Even when I first started trying to figure out where these bonuses are appearing, I wouldn't even necessarily drive. I would set my alarm. I will wake up at 4 a.m. and I would just look at my phone screen. Nowadays, what I would do is I would just record my phone screen before you go to bed. Plug in your phone, turn your screen recording on, and just let your phone sit there and record the surges that are popping up, and then review it in the morning. Speed through it, scrub through it, see when and where these surges are popping up. Sometimes I do split shifts, right? I'll wake up at 3 a.m. I'll make sure I'm downtown by 3:30, 4 o'clock the latest. I'll take a couple rides until traffic starts, right? I'll drive from 3:30 until 6:30, 7:30. Oh, traffic starts, it's time to go. Or in some cases, I built strategies where I can mitigate traffic by being downtown before traffic starts, take rides downtown without traffic, and then when I'm done, because I live in the opposite direction of where traffic will be, I can just go home. So there's some play that you can do with it. I think that you still have some learning to do outside of like 2 to 2 a.m. I think you probably know the 2 to 2 a.m. shit pretty well. You probably have some downtime in there during certain periods of time that you might need to just plan to do something else while you're doing it, right? A good tip that I got recently was, yeah, wake up early, deliver people in the morning, and then when the delivery stopped, like around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 a.m., you switch over to food when people are starting to order their breakfast, starting to order their lunch, and then you flip back to delivery at the end of the day. So there's some play that you might be able to find. We in the gaming space we call this min max, where you're trying to minimize the negatives and maximize the positives. And if you're gonna be working 12 hours like that, I think you might be better off breaking it up. You might be better off doing 6 hours in the morning. Like what what I would recommend for anyone who is struggling, find the most profitable 12 hours of the day and try to work them, right? Even if that means you work 4 hours here, take a break, you work 4 hours there, you take a break, you work 4 hours there. It can be annoying. You lose some money having to leave your house and go back to your home, but you got to play around with it a little bit. I'm not going to say that is the winning strategy, but you need to give yourself some more flexibility if possible. I don't know what your like home situation is. I don't know if you're married. I don't know if you say you have no wife, so and no life. So apparently you have time. But you have to play around with it. If what you're doing isn't working, you have to adjust it as you're moving forward. Anthony, message restricted. What are you guys saying to get restricted? I promise you, it's not me. It's auto moderated, and I'm very loose here. So what are you guys saying? Are you guys deleting stuff? No Life says, yeah, I watch both of you guys like channels. Thanks, I respect it. Anthony Matthew says I made 1,600 last week. I think that's good, depending on how many hours you have to put in. Can we please do Vegas? Is that where you're at? All right, I'll do Vegas, but that's the last one. That's gonna be the last one. I'm gonna go through these comments first before I do Vegas. It was a woman. She did get interviewed. Are you talking about the DoorDash thing? Traffic gets bad after 3 until 6 to 7. So usually, uh, if I can't start before 3, I won't. I know that if I leave my house around 2 p.m. and I go west, right? I know traffic moves from east to west where I live. But if I start here, right, and I use my destination filter to only give me rides that go towards downtown, I know that as I'm picking people up, I won't have traffic that I'm going to be dealing with, or I won't have as much traffic as if I were going in the inverse. So that's the strategy you could play with too. Try to figure it out. I was thinking waking at 5 a.m. I think 5 a.m. is a little too late. I think I I think 3 a.m., depending on how far you live from where it's busy or where people need rides, I think 3 a.m. is better. 5 a.m. is too close to when traffic starts. If you wake up at 5 a.m. and you drive until 7 a.m., you've driven 2 hours. Is that sustainable? Is that enough? I think 5 a.m. isn't early enough. And I know some bigger cities get started earlier than my city. My city gets started kind of around 6. I know in Atlanta, you can have a lot of cars on the road at 5 a.m. already. Yeah, not a fan of airport runs, but sometimes I will. So I'm not telling you to do airport runs, right? So, for example, I use my stay within an area filter when I go downtown, and I don't include the airport in that radius. So What will happen is there's a bunch of people that do need to go to the airport. I'm not necessarily taking them. I'm benefiting from the bonuses that are created as a result of those people needing to go to the airport. Now, with the stay within an area filter with Lyft, even if there's a ride that goes outside of the filter, it shows up on the screen. You can still click on it, look at it, and determine if you want to accept it despite the fact that it's going outside of your filter. So sometimes I'll do that, but the goal here is to benefit off of those bonuses and take short rides. Now short rides for you at that time may differ, but I downtown has medical universities and schools and things like that, so there are people taking short rides. I'm just piggybacking off of the bonuses that are created from all the people that need to go to the airport at once. And a great way to see if people need to go to the airport is just looking at pre-scheduled rides, right? If you look at your pre-scheduled rides on Lyft and you see you have like 5 people trying to go to the airport at 4 a.m., then that's a signal to you that you need to be downtown around 3:30, because those bonuses are going to pop up in anticipation to encourage drivers to get all of these scheduled rides. So there you go, some tips, right? No Life says, yeah, I break it up. Only time I grind is if Lyft gives me a crazy challenge, which they don't always do. Okay, that's fair. I have somewhat of a life. It's what it is, man. Sometimes it's a season for grinding, and sometimes it isn't. What I will say is just be intentional, man. Like the money you make from your grinding. One of my biggest regrets is not using my money efficiently when I was in my 20s. That's one of my biggest regrets. So I've always been the type of person to go out there and grind, but I've only recently become the kind of person to be more intentional with what I do with the money I make from it. No Uber, maybe. I'm not gonna promise St. Louis, but maybe. I'm gonna do Vegas, maybe St. Louis. No promises. Wait, St. Louis. Yeah, maybe we'll see. What's my top three anime? I will answer that after I'm done with solo. So we're gonna do. Here we go. We're gonna do. What are we gonna do? What did we say? Vegas at the bottom, of course. And we've been here for 2 hours and we haven't even touched news. All right, so Vegas looking pretty decent. Number one, Lyft, just Lyft, $2,095. Number two, $1,864. Number three, $1,577. Of course, we don't know what kind of cars these guys are using. I know Black is available in Vegas for both Uber and Lyft. And I think you guys are ramping up. I think this is your seasons. I know you guys can get pretty slow in the winters too. Amazon Flex made the list, 1,342, ranked seventh. Let's see how many people made over $1,000. So we got 25 people who made over $1,000. We're seeing some Amazon Flex, some Spark, but it's really just the bulk of it seems to be Uber and Lyft. I have biases towards Lyft, but I will drive whatever makes the most money. But I do like seeing Lyft at the top. A lot of people think that like you can't make money with Lyft. I don't even try to correct them, because I feel like in my city I make more money with Lyft, and maybe I don't have Uber figured out in the way that I should. You said St. Louis again at the bottom. I need more A names. Like, why doesn't someone from Atlanta want to know what's going on? I don't understand. I scroll for so long sometimes I forget what I'm even looking for. St. George. I don't see St. Louis. There we go. All right. So number one, $1,620. Number two, $1,516. Number three, $1,488. And yeah, it's not a great market. Only have like 7 people making over 1,000. And you have DoorDash, Amazon Flex, Lyft, Uber. It doesn't seem to be the best market. I don't know. Is that where you are? Is that like what you experience? All right. So my favorite animes. We'll do it real quick. Number one is One Piece. I actually have a little. My wife got me this for some event, birthday or something. I'm not a collector or anything like that, but she thought it was cute. She got it for me. This is my favorite character, One Piece. This is Law. He holds my rings. This is my wedding ring. I know where my rings are. He always has them. And my number one anime is One Piece for sure. Number two, number two. I don't even know. Number two might be this is this is rough. Number two is probably Yu Yu Hakusho. It's old school. I go back to it pretty often. That's gonna be my number two. Number three, probably gonna be Hunter. I think Hunter has potential to be number one, but the creator just drops the ball on making new episodes. Right, like the Ant arc was good, but we need some more. We need some more. All right, we're gonna go back to Rideshare, and we're gonna start talking about news. We've got a couple of things lined up. We're gonna talk about Minneapolis for a little bit. I won't stay too long here, but there has been some movement. So Uber and Lyft alternatives say they will launch in Minneapolis soon, just not today. That's not the story I want to read right now. I'm going to read this one first. It's more important. House Senate leaders announced deal with Minneapolis Council on Uber and Lyft driver rates. This is from May 6th. Today's May 7th. This just happened, so it's important. It's I'm going to read it and then I'll give you my thoughts. Sorry. It's been a while since I've done this. Minnesota legislative leaders announced a deal with members of the Minneapolis City Council on Monday on minimum pay rates for Uber and Lyft drivers. Notably absent from the deal, however, are Governor Tim Walz and the two companies, right? So Governor Tim Walz and Uber and Lyft. Uber and Lyft both said on Monday they will leave Minnesota if the rates in the deal, $1.27 per mile and 49 cents per minute, take effect. So that's less than the $1.70 they're trying to do for the city, the Twin City. A spokesperson for Walz called the deal a positive step and that the governor's goal remains to be finding a solution that ensures workers are paid fairly while allowing these essential services to remain in Minnesota. So one thing I do want to note is Uber and Lyft I think they were okay with $1.17 initially, like last year, but then the study came out showing that drivers only needed like 80 something cents. And I kind of saw this coming. I saw where now that there is like substantial proof of how much drivers should have to make, right? Uber and Lyft, or the MOLDA, the drivers union for rideshare drivers, they lost a lot of bargaining, right? They could have Uber and Lyft were willing to agree to like $1.17 almost a year ago, right? That it's the mayor Frey said that would have been the case. The drivers would have already been making $1.17 or whatever it was. But now that there's a study out on how much $15 per hour for drivers equates to, Uber and Lyft have a lot more leeway in like their negotiations. I feel like Molda, they came out too strong. They were ignoring certain things and it's costing them. I think they would have been better off accepting a deal earlier, and now they kind of lost their steam because of this new thing that's happening. So I'm gonna say, I'm, I'm, my morality is, if I tell you I'm willing to do, a dollar per mile, but I'm not willing to do $1.70, right? I'm just pretending I'm in this situation, but then a study comes out and says I really should give you 80 cents. I think I'm the type of person who will say I'm still going to honor that dollar, you know? And I wish Uber and Lyft would do this, right? But it seems like they're going to fall back to that 80 cents instead of giving them something that they've agreed to in the past. So, let's just keep reading. Last year, Walz issued the only veto of his tenure on a bill setting minimum pay for drivers after Uber threatened to dramatically curtail service in the state. House Majority Leader Jamie Long acknowledged that the companies were not involved in the negotiations, but said he doesn't think they will follow through. I don't understand what's the purpose of not including these guys in the negotiations, right? Even if they don't agree, they should still be present at the table. And it's kind of weird that they're not. Like, what's the point of not having them there? You know, I think they're bluffing, Long said in a news conference with reporters on Monday. They're operating in Washington state at rates that are above what we're proposing. So this isn't an apples to apples comparison. Um, and for a while I thought it was, but then I realized that I read a stat that the average customer who takes an Uber or Lyft in Washington makes about double the money of the average person who takes an Uber or Lyft in Minneapolis, right? They make about double the money. So certain markets can afford increases more than other markets can. And again, I'm not saying that this can't work at all in this market. It very well could, but if you're gonna make comparisons like that, you have to you have to be aware of that difference, right? Not everything that's going to work in New York is going to work in Charleston. Not everything that works in LA is going to work in Minneapolis. So like you can't you can't use that in totality. Like you can draw some comparisons from it and that's fine, but there are nuances there that need to be considered and discussed. He said that's only half true. Washington state mandates a higher per mile rate of $1.31 outside of Seattle, but its per minute rate of 38 cents is significantly lower. In Seattle, drivers are entitled to $1.55 per mile and 66 cents per minute. We don't really make money off of the cents per minute, so I'm kind of meh on this entire statement. We make majority of our money on the miles. As part of the deal with the companies, Washington state also defines drivers explicitly as independent contractors in state law, a significant prize for Uber and Lyft, which Minneapolis Democrats don't support. I haven't really seen too much on that, and I don't think that. Of course, I'm pro independent contractor. I think that's the way to go for Uber and Lyft drivers. For me, for how I operate, and I guess Uber and Lyft agree as well. While the companies and the governor may not be on board, Long emphasized the concessions of Minneapolis City Council members to reduce their per mile rate 13 cents. They're fighting over pennies now. The Minneapolis City Council overrode a mayoral vote veto in March to pass minimum rates of $1.40 per mile and 51 cents per minute, which are set to take effect on July 1st after the council chose to delay enactment at the response of state lawmakers. Super proud on the council for delaying it because no one is ready. It was supposed to go live May 1st and no one is ready. And a lot of drivers would have been caught with their pants down, unfortunately, and passengers as well. So it's pretty good that they delayed it. Still not a fan of the plan, but I'm a fan that they delayed it. This was a really big move for the Minneapolis City Council, Long said. A spokesperson for House Speaker Melissa Hortman declined to comment when asked if she supports the deal. The state does have the power to override local leaders through preemption, but Democrats say it's not an option they want to pursue. That means, and I'm not a fan of this either, right? So I may not even agree with the council, but the council did what they had to do. They voted on it and they won, right? For better or worse, that it you let it go. But what the state wants to do is they want to block the council from having power to even affect TNC providers, which is like Uber and Lyft. So I don't agree with that from a American standpoint. Like, yo, you had a rule, they followed the rule, and they got what they want through that rule. Don't take it away from them, right? I don't agree with what they're trying to do. I don't agree with the amount. I agree with what they're trying to do. I don't agree with the amount. But that aside, I support like I just think that it waters down the system, right? You say, hey, here's how you win, and then someone wins, and then you try to like change the rules after they won. I'm not a fan of that. I'm just not a fan of that. They did it the right way. Don't agree with it, but I'm just not a fan of that. All right, it says they want to avoid setting the precedent for preemption cities from enacting more stringent labor laws than the state. Good. Yeah, that's good. In a statement, Minneapolis Council President Elliot Payne said, "It was refreshing to work with our state leaders who were willing to engage in tough conversations without compromising the core DFL value of making sure every worker, regardless of profession, can earn a minimum wage." And what I'm also realizing in this conversation is that as I'm debating and getting deeper into other drivers' opinions on this, I've realized that everyone agrees that rideshare shouldn't be a minimum wage job. We all agree on that. I'm realizing that my angle and how I was tackling the council was because what they thought would equate to a minimum wage job actually kind of equated to like $40 per hour. And drivers were okay with that because they don't think it should be a minimum wage job. It's so like the contention when I'm talking to other drivers is like drivers deserve to get paid. If it's under the disguise of minimum wage, but it works out to be more than minimum wage, they're okay with that. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. My main problem was and is if you want accurate solutions, you have to use accurate like numbers, accurate problems. And for government to say, hey, this new rule is supposed to make drivers earn $15 an hour when it equates to like $40 an hour, it's like how that's not okay, right? If you want to increase driver pay, do it right. That's my overall stance on that. But not everyone cares about that. They just want drivers to get paid regardless. Which, if that's your stance, that's your stance. I think that is gonna have some negative repercussions, but we'll see. We'll see. Right? Seattle's doing pretty decent over there with their increased wages. Well, we'll see. With just 2 weeks left in the session, legislative leaders are under pressure to keep their narrow majorities together to pass their entire agenda, which includes some spending and a major infrastructure package. In the Senate, Democrats have just one seat majority, giving any one senator significant leverage. The author of Uber and Lyft bill in the Senate, Omar Fatah of Minneapolis, wielded his de facto veto last session to push the Uber and Lyft bill through the legislature, even though it was ultimately vetoed. I remember that. That was like in November. Sources familiar with the negotiations say Fatah is again dug in the aligned with the progressive flank of the Minneapolis City Council that wants to push rates above the recommendations in a state study of more than 18 million trips taken in the state in 2022. That study, commissioned by the State Department of Labor and Industry, estimated the typical Twin Cities driver would have to be paid at least 89 cents per mile to pay for vehicle costs and their share of payroll taxes, plus 49 cents per minute to earn the Minneapolis minimum wage of $15.57. Now, there has been some like updates to that study that I didn't cover, and hopefully it's getting covered here. The researchers, economists Michael Reisch of University of California, Berkeley, and James Parrott of New School also calculated a higher per mile rate of $1.20, which would compensate drivers for benefits like health insurance, paid sick leave, paid family medical leave, and retirement savings. Neither calculations include tips, which I don't think they should. Tips are extra. Long justified the higher rate by noting it moves closer to the rates proposed in the state report for Greater Minnesota of $1.39 per mile and 49 cents per minute. I think the mayor was okay with one of these as well. Higher rates are needed in Greater Minnesota to guarantee drivers in a lower minimum wage, the state minimum of $10.85 per hour, because drivers spend more time waiting for fares and driving to pickups. So like this is back to that part of the conversation where this is intended to help with minimum wage, but it's this isn't a minimum wage conversation. That means typical drivers in Greater Minnesota would be guaranteed less than the state minimum of $10.85, while Twin City drivers who provide about 95% of rides in the state would be entitled to more than the Minneapolis minimum wage of $15.57 per hour if demand stays constant. When asked about the disparity, Long said, "Sounds like a good compromise." I don't like that. Uber sent rate proposals to lawmakers last week that are significantly lower than those recommended in the state study. The company criticized the state study for what it called exaggerated cost estimates. The company told lawmakers it would support an earnings floor 68 cents per mile and 39 to 42 cents per minute. Wow, that's actually disgusting. So again, don't agree with the city council, but this is actually like a real low floor. This is like much lower than the 89 cents that the study found, and Uber's just like, nah, F all that. We're just gonna do 68 cents. That's kind of disgusting. That's a little disgusting. I do think floors should be set. I don't know what those floors should be. 68 cents. I want to see the math on that. This is new information to me. I'm gonna have to do some more research off stream. Last year, Uber told drivers it would agree to $1.17 per mile and 34 cents per minute, right? This is what I was saying earlier. The Uber and Lyft and the mayor agreed that, hey, instead of doing $1.40, right, let's do $1.17 per mile, 37 cents per minute. and we can continue operating in Minneapolis. And the driver group Molda and the city council didn't support it. They could have had this a year ago. A year ago, they could have been making this already. Which that's pretty good. Most markets aren't making that, and I still think that would have had some ramifications on the market, sure, but not as much as the 170. So, or 140, I think it is. I keep saying 170, but it might be 140. I'm pretty sure it's 140. So they could have had this already, but they decided not to do that. So yeah, last year Uber told drivers it would agree to $1.17 per mile and 34 cents per minute at minimum, right? I want to stress that this is not what they would make overall. This is what they would make at minimum. This isn't the average. At minimum, they would make $1.17 per mile and 34 cents per minute at minimum. No bonuses, no nothing, at minimum. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm getting at? This is the minimum, not the max, not the average, the minimum. So $1.17 per mile, 34 cents per minute, on the condition that there would be preemption over local regulations and drivers would be defined as independent contractors. This is probably what the city council didn't want to give up. I kind of get that. I kind of understand that. The preemption is where the state legislature is able to say cities aren't able to make decisions in this field. So I can understand why they wouldn't want to agree with this part. So okay, I get it. A spokesperson for Lyft said the company supports the lower cost estimate in the state report. Yup, that was true a year ago as well. Uber says since Seattle set minimum pay rates, drivers have seen their overall income decline, even while their per trip earnings have increased. So that's supply and demand. One, this is coming from Uber. You can take it with a couple grains of salt. I haven't really seen a bunch of negative feedback from drivers on this topic, so take it with a grain of salt. But Uber is claiming that because drivers are being paid more per ride, but there's a lot less rides per driver. So they're saying overall, yes, drivers are working less, but drivers are like taking less rides. They're getting paid more per ride, but they're not making as much money as they were before. So they're not grinding, or they don't have the ability to grind as they were grinding before. But that's from Uber. Grain of salt. The company says that it's due to both lower demand and more drivers signing up to work on their platform. And that's fair too, right? You increase the wage, it becomes more ideal to people. Like, oh, I can make this much amount doing Uber and Lyft, guaranteed. It's gonna increase how many drivers jump on the platform. So that is something to think about, right? So like, my thing here is sometimes government can be well intended, right? They want to help people and they create laws to help those people, and sometimes there are effects from that help that were unforeseen, right? Due to negligence, lack of knowledge, or just you couldn't see it happen. You can't predict everything. In that same breath, I feel like government bodies aren't doing enough to like mitigate that, to like research that. Like what will happen if this happens? Or even what I really like about New York, when they increase their pay, it's over time, right? They don't just jump huge in one day. They say, all right, we want to increase driver pay to $2 per hour. In 6 months, we'll go to 120. 6 months after that, we'll go to 150. And they'll incrementally increase it so that if there's something negative happening that was unforeseen, they can address it. But the city council, one of my major pain points with this city council is that they just want to, like, let's just give them the max. Let's just pay the most. We'll see how it works and we'll hope for the best. And I don't think that's like great of government, but here it is. Here we are. So it says Senator Jim, the lone Republican to endorse the deal, is a news release from legislative Democrats and members of the city council, later said through a spokeswoman, he was misinformed about Uber and Lyft's lack of participation in the negotiations. Okay, so he agreed with it, but he didn't realize Uber and Lyft were not part of the negotiations. I trust those in the room will keep negotiating in good faith to keep rideshare companies operating for those who need them. All right, so I'm not going to go too much more into this particular story, but I'm curious to hear from you guys. Do you think Minneapolis specifically, do you think those drivers are going to make more money if Uber and Lyft leave, right? And that's kind of what we need to figure out, right? We still need to figure out who's going to replace these companies, and that's kind of what the next story is about. And this is the last story on Minneapolis for today. We're gonna move on. All these on the sidebar, if you guys can see it, were stories that we should have talked about in the past, but I don't want to be here. I'm burnt out from this topic. Uber and Lyft alternatives say they will launch in Minneapolis soon, just not today. This is from May 1st, when Uber and Lyft should have been leaving, right? And they postponed it because they couldn't. They didn't have an alternative ready for something that they've known about this for almost a year, right? Uber and Lyft has said, "Hey, if you do this, we're gonna leave." This was about a year ago, and despite that being the case, these companies, the Mulder Group and the city council, didn't have a replacement set up. So I'm not going to harp on them too much for that because they postponed it. It's okay to make a mistake and try to correct the mistake, and postponing the date was the correct decision. So shout outs to them. I'm not gonna beat them up too much for it. May 1st was supposed to be a big day in Minneapolis for emerging ride-hail companies, with at least 9 startups saying they would launch in the Twin Cities and claim the market share surrendered by Uber and Lyft over minimum pay rates for drivers set by the Minneapolis City Council. But nearly 2 months after the City Council passed those rates, delaying enactment until May 1st, and then July 1st, just 2 transportation network companies are operational in the city, Uber and Lyft. Right? Some YouTubers, the Rideshare professor, he, whenever he makes videos on this topic, he always like, he kind of like blames Uber and Lyft, right? Like, oh, you guys are sticking around to July 1st. Oh, you guys are staying around till May 1st. But it's not. It's really the city council who faltered. That's causing that. And I'm gonna be honest with you. There is a percentage of me that wants Uber and Lyft to leave so that we can see what that landscape looks like, right? Personally, I think it'll be detrimental to drivers, and I could be wrong. The best case scenario for all rideshare drivers across America is for Uber and Lyft to leave, and for the drivers in that city to figure out a solution that makes them either the same amount of money or better, right? I think that would be the ideal case, right? I want people to make more money. I don't care about Uber and Lyft. I don't care about their profits. I just hope they don't go away before I'm done with them, right? I don't want them to go bankrupt before I'm done with them. I don't want Lyft to be sold to another company and incorporated into that company until I am done with them. It's selfish of me, but that's what it is. So if there's something that can replace Uber and Lyft that will make me more money in a similar way that I currently handle my business, I support that. That would be awesome. I just don't think that that's what will happen, but I do think there's a possibility it happens. It's possible that someone with a lot less overhead than Uber and Lyft comes up with a solution that works out better for drivers. I know they have like the driver co-op that's going to try and do their thing. And if this situation can put some like proof that something else can work, I think it'd be great for all rideshare drivers. That's best case scenario. But currently, as we're seeing, it's not that easy, right? Even companies that have existed for a while, like Rides, right? Rides is available in Charleston. They started in Texas when Uber Lyft left for a different reason, and they have a business up, running, and going. Yet they haven't like set up in Minneapolis yet. Why? Right? I'm not saying I know why. There's something that's not as easy as we thought it would be, as the council thought it would be, as the Mulder Group thought it would be happening, that is preventing companies from moving forward, right? Just one potential competitor, My Wheels, spelled MYWEELS with no H, became licensed in Minneapolis on Wednesday after paying the city's annual fee of $37,145 plus $10,615 for a wheelchair surcharge. My Wheels is also the only ride-hail alternative to be licensed in St. Paul after paying its annual fee of $41,115. 3 companies, My Wheels, Move, and Twin City Taxi, that's the only good name in this bunch, Twin City Taxis, have applied to operate in the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, which has a licensing fee of $500. So I will say, yeah, there's a lot of money that has to go into doing these things. That can be a roadblock for a lot of companies. It is a lot of money. You have to get licensed in cities, like if you want to do airport rides in Minneapolis, you have to get your license in St. Paul, because the airport's in St. Paul, from what I understand. I don't live there, so this is just based off of what I've learned. So at minimum, you really do want to be able to do those two cities. That's why they call them the twin cities, I'm assuming. At minimum, you want to be able to do that, and that's a lot of money, right? If you're a young startup, you haven't made $1 yet. This is rough. This is really rough. My Will's founder. Here's what I will also say: all these alternative rideshare companies that can't afford this probably aren't doing well, or right, they can afford it and they don't see a profitability with the pay rates that the council wants. So I don't know, like, so many companies shot up when this news happened, but none of them are doing the actual thing to put them in a scenario to do the actual thing, right? It's kind of like they just hopped on top of it for the media, but when it comes to actually executing the plan and setting up there, they're not wanting to do it. And to me, that's a red flag, right? We know that there's a cost. Sure. We know that there's a cost. And company, like, I don't know how better to phrase it, right? It costs money to do this. I'm assuming it costs money in most places to do this. I don't know how much. I don't know if it's comparable. But if a company thought that they were able to make money despite these costs, then they should do it, right? We have My Wheels who did that. We have Move who did that. We have Twin City Taxis who did that. They believe that despite these fees and despite the per mile that will happen, that they're able to profit off of that. And if that's what they believe, that's fine. But all these other companies like rides that are like available in different markets and have been generating income, I'm curious to why they're not following through. Like, what are they waiting for? You know? And so it's I'm not gonna say it's a red flag. It's definitely a yellow flag for sure. It's not a green flag. My Will's founder Elon Bear predicted that few companies promising to come to the Twin Cities would get to the starting line, let alone push up for a good race. Interesting. I want to know why he thinks that. Bear, the CEO of a Minnesota-based private equity firm, said what set him apart from the others was his access to capital, not some new proprietary technology or the allegiance of hundreds of drivers. That's a good point. Money's not everything, right? So he's saying he does have the money, but I guess that is like step one. So we'll see what happens moving forward. And I do think that in order for someone to be successful when facing Uber and Lyft, they do have to have some money. Because if a law changes and Uber and Lyft decides to stay, as they did in Austin, they're just gonna price gouge, not gouge, the opposite of price gouge. They're gonna like price all these other companies out the market, and then once they're gone, they're gonna jack up rates. And we've seen that happen before. So someone who has enough capital to withstand that is kind of the person who needs to be here. He says, I wish it was something more glamorous, but the fact is, what makes us unique is just the money. Viable competitors entering the market could be a boon for drivers and riders by putting more pressure on Uber and Lyft to compete on wages and price, although there's surely a limit on how many apps drivers and riders are likely to use regularly. That's fair. Bear said he thought if Uber and Lyft do leave, probably only two alternatives will survive, essentially recreating the duopoly under different names. That's fair. But if they leave and there's a duopoly, that's okay as long as drivers are being paid adequately. Uber and Lyft says they'll remain operational unless the Minneapolis rates take effect, which seem less likely after a second delay and pressure from state lawmakers to find a compromise. That will make scaling up harder for new companies, although they could still benefit from the significant public attention on the issue. We're going to stop right there for this article. And let me know what you think. Let me know where you're at. Let me know if you think this is going to happen. Let me know if you're in Minneapolis and you have any more information to share with me. You know, I'm worried that this happens. July 1st comes, it happens. I'm worried that something goes wrong in the middle of summer and the money that they would have made otherwise is no longer there. I'm worried that winter hits harder than it did last winter and it's slower and there's no Uber and Lyft for these people. But we're gonna learn, right? We're all learning in real time here. So we'll see where it goes. I'm going to check in on the comments, and then I think I'll cover this story next. It's about airport rideshare fees and how they generate revenues at the customer's expense. I think it's important to cover this topic because a lot of times when I'm talking to drivers and they're upset with, the percentage split that we get with Uber and Lyft, A percentage of that is because of the government, and sometimes I feel like that's overlooked. So I want to go through this article. I haven't read it, and we'll see what they say, but I'm going to check in with the comments first. All right, History Code says share your Uber X strategy. Only do airport runs. I, I mean, I use Lyft more than Uber X, but I mean, strategies would be similar. I think that Lyft has better tools than Uber for how I operate, and I mean, I shared that earlier. You probably have to go back and rewatch it. Warren says I do great in St. Louis. That's good. I like your name, Warren Family Values. That's dope. History Code says, if you could be an anime girl, which one would you be? That's a weird question. I'd be Rin. Rin from Fate's Day. I like her attitude. I like how she goes about her business. You know, she's about her business. You know, she's about getting it done, and she's not afraid of getting dirty. I like Rin. She's one of my favorite female protagonists. But one female protagonist and based anime that I really do enjoy was Claymore. You have Teresa of the Faint Smile. She's dope too. So Denise says, Denise, hello, welcome. All right, so not much in the way of comments. We're gonna jump back over to this article over here. We have about 20 something minutes left. All right, so airport rideshare fees generate revenues at customers' expense. With headlines dominated by recent minimum wage hikes forcing rideshare companies out of cities, it's easy to forget that other regulation that rideshare companies continue to be targeted with. Airports nationwide have been levying additional fees, and American consumers are paying the price. From Boston Logan International Airport in Massachusetts to John Wayne Airport in California, a large number of American airports, nearly all of which are government owned, have increasingly decided to levy fees, specifically pickup and drop-off fees on ride-sharing services. Airport officials argue these fees are necessary to fund infrastructure, maintenance, and reduce traffic congestion. Not only are these, I don't understand how that one, right? If you're taxing drivers / passengers for infrastructure maintenance, reduce traffic congestion, I don't think people are just avoiding going to the airport because there are fees. I don't think that's what's happening for rideshare. It says that not only are these claims disingenuous, I agree, as the low elasticity of demand for ridesharing service suggests raising fees would not reduce traffic, just agreed, but they also produce a wide range of unintended consequences for customers, consumers, drivers, and all the economy in general. First, ride-sharing fees distort market prices by adding additional charges to Uber and Lyft rides. While airports argue that these charges are relatively small, airport officials regularly increase them whenever they deem necessary. For instance, Lehigh Valley International Airport in Norristown, Pennsylvania, recently voted to charge Uber and Lyft a $2.50 fee on every ride to and from the airport, up from $2 previously. Ride-sharing fees are also counterproductive for the gig economy workers who get less take-home pay as a result. For instance, Uber already keeps up to 25% of the profit generated from a ride, and the driver receives whatever is left, after accounting for fees and vehicle wear and tear. There are also serious doubts about whether the money raised by ride-sharing fees is used for its intended purposes. While airport authorities frequently claim that these fees are necessary to pay for ride-sharing related infrastructure maintenance, in a concept known as cost recovery, this money can be used for whatever authorities want. This is an enticing proposition for airports looking for new revenue streams and none of the drama associated with traditional tax increases. There's some drama. Don't call us no drama. Indeed, evidence suggests that these fees will only become more important to airports in the years ahead. Perhaps the biggest unintended consequence of airport fees is that, in practice, they often mean choosing winners and losers in the consumer market. This is because these fees are frequently not applied to alternative forms of ground transportation such as airport shuttles, buses, or even personal vehicles, each of which also utilizes airport infrastructure but pay nothing. Interesting. Even when these fees are applied to alternative forms of transportation such as taxis, it's often at a different rate. Orlando International Airport charges rideshare companies $7 per trip while only charging taxis $4. I wonder how they decide that. How you wake up and say, hey, let's charge rideshare drivers or rideshare passengers $7 per trip and only charge taxis $4. Like, what thought process went into that? This is despite there being a Florida state law that requires airport rideshare and pickup fees to be consistent with those fees charged to taxis, right? So that this makes sense, but my fear is that they go, okay, in order to make them consistent, let's keep this at $7 and raise it for taxis to $7. That's how I feel like the government would handle that situation. So be careful what we ask for. Um, in some cases, airport authorities have been openly colluding with the taxi industry to regulate rideshare companies, such as was the case with Hillsborough County. This unequal treatment puts a thumb on the scale in favor of legacy transportation services, services which in many cases are not consumers' preferred mode of transportation. Ooh, someone's in bed with someone else and they have money. That's not unusual, right? Take rideshare out of this conversation. What we're hearing is not unusual for politicking. Ending these practices will require airport authorities to treat all transportation services equally and be willing to scale down less popular options should weak consumer demand require it. It will also require lawmakers to take a more active role in drafting legislation to prevent airports from levying fees on rideshare services without first obtaining public approval. Taking such steps will not only improve transparency, but also enhance consumer welfare by removing unnecessary fees that make air travel more expensive. So a very interesting take. It's not a huge bite out of the rideshare pay. What's the huge bite is the insurance that we don't really know where it's going. But there's a couple of different angles to play. Uber and Lyft claim that the insurance is mandated by the government. So I mean, if that's true, and then I heard that from Uber, the email from Uber, they said that they pay more for commercial insurance than is required for like other companies, including taxis. So there's some of what we just read here about collusion could be present between the insurance companies and government in order to get Uber and Lyft to pay out as much on insurance as possible. It's possible that they're pocketing some of that money. That wouldn't be unlike Uber, right? But like I said earlier, when if you want accurate results, you have to like attack the problem accurately. And I think too many people, their government has a hand in a part of that percentage, and not enough. I wish more people would talk about it, would bring it up. Yes, Uber and Lyft, we should continue talking about their take. Yes, but I think that the biggest area drivers could win in terms of take rate right now would be to have some form of legislation that forces Uber and Lyft to be transparent about how much of that external fee is actually going to insurance, right? Right now, Lyft shows it as like external fee plus other stuff, but they don't really list what that other stuff is. We don't even know how they're calculating insurance. We don't even know how much they're paying per driver for insurance. We don't have that information. And I think if we had that information, we would be able to make better decisions about what we need to adjust through government in order to fix it. So I thought this was a cool story to share. I'm glad I shared it with you. Let's see what else we got. We got 15 minutes left. Oh, this is a big one. This kind of just happened. Okay. Instacart is getting restaurant delivery thanks to Uber Eats. So super weird headline. This is, I guess, was this like today or yesterday? It's from May 7, 2024. It says the companies are teaming up to expand the ability of customers to use apps to order food from restaurants. Grocery delivery service Instacart is expanding into restaurant takeout thanks to a new partnership with Uber Eats. So I haven't read this, right? My gut reaction is this is weird. Why wouldn't Uber just create an Instacart competitor and add it to their app? It's weird that's what we would expect, right? I would expect Uber to say, all right, let's go and compete. Uber wants to be the everything app. They want to be the app everyone goes to do the things they want to do. Why are they now allowing people to get Uber Eats through Instacart? Is it a money play, right? Is it just like a quick money play? Is there like a long-term partnership that's happening here? Does Uber want to buy Instacart? So like, there's a lot of like questions being raised in my mind just from a Uber standpoint. From a driver standpoint, now I'm curious. should I start doing Instacart? Is it gonna increase the profitability levels? Is it gonna, you know, change driver pay in some way that's important? So the article says in the coming weeks, Instacart will add a new feature for restaurant delivery with the back end mechanics powered by Uber. I wonder if Instacart's paying Uber. I don't understand the nature of this relationship. The listing of restaurants will be provided by Uber. The transaction will be overseen by Uber's software, and the food will be picked up and delivered by Uber Eats couriers. The only difference is that everything will take place within Instacart's app or website. What's the purpose of this? Right? Are there people in the world who only use the Instacart app? Like, I don't understand who is benefiting from this. Like, who's paying who here? Neither company would share the financial details of the deal, the important part, so we don't have any insight into how much Instacart is paying to use Uber's food delivery software, or if Uber's paying Instacart to be able to do that. Who knows? Uber spokesperson Noah Edwardson said the prices would not change for customers, nor would couriers see smaller payouts. So, gut reaction here is no. If you're a driver, you don't want to just go and jump on Instacart because the Uber Eat orders are gonna still come through Uber Eats. So it might increase orders. I don't think it will. I think anyone who was ordering Uber Eats. All right, so here's how I think about it. There are people out there who want Uber Eats but don't want to download the app, and they're gonna do it through Instacart. I think that the percentage of those amount of people who fit that category is gonna be really low, and it's not gonna make a huge difference. I could be wrong. I just don't think it's gonna make a huge difference. If someone wanted food delivered to them, right, they're probably gonna use Uber Eats or DoorDash or whatever. Just because Instagram now suddenly has Uber Eats in it. I'm sorry. I had a thought. Okay, so I'm gonna take a couple steps back. If there are, I think that there are people who order groceries who may not order food, right? So they're not even seeing the interface for food ordering. So by including the food ordering interface into the grocery interface, maybe that percentage of users will be tempted to order food through Uber Eats while they're also ordering food for delivery. So that could be the play. I still think that like the percentage of people that fit into that category is probably going to be really low. I don't think this is worth it, but I don't know. I'm just some guy in a room. Consumers will see the same restaurant menu prices on Instacart that they do on Uber Eats, and couriers will be paid the same way they would for orders directly from Uber Eats, right? Uber says its motivation is to drive more orders to Uber Eats restaurant partners, while Instacart gets to add a galaxy of new business to its delivery operation without having to go through the laborious process from building it up from the ground. I still don't see I still don't see that. That second part doesn't really make sense in my brain. But to drive more orders to Uber Eats, it sounds like Uber's benefiting more than Instacart here. Uber says it is joining Instacart to create technologies and solutions that support brick and mortar businesses. Okay, it could just be the beginning of a much more in-depth partnership. I don't know if we should be afraid or worried when you start seeing companies like this join hands. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It's not very common for two companies to do this. Still, it's a curious move considering both companies compete with each other over grocery customers. Instacart dominates digital grocery delivery, capturing more than 70% market share in 2023. Still, Walmart and Amazon remain the biggest players in the overall grocery delivery business. Restaurant takeout is a fraught business powered by underpaid delivery workers and often used as a front for thousands of virtual kitchens with no brick and mortar presence to support. The app companies are also opposing state and city government efforts to increase delivery worker pay, filing lawsuits, and even going so far as to hide tipping features on certain platforms. I don't know, man. I don't know. What is this comment saying? Maybe they know more than I do. This person says, "Yo, dog, I heard you like food deliveries. I put a delivery service in your delivery service so you can eat while you eat." That's a exhibit reference. Yeah, man. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this. Do you guys? I just feel like whenever Uber is involved in something, it's not going to be great for drivers. That's how I feel when it comes to Uber. Uber is definitely one of the more shady companies in the delivery space. So I don't know. I do not know. We don't have enough time to dissect this. I do want to go through this. It's not going to be today. Probably going to be next week. Cleveland Uber driver who made $109,000 in 2023, but took home only $17,000 shares the 3 reasons he can't quit ride hailing. I continue to run into a brick wall. I don't fault the driver for this information. Business Insider loves to run these kind of titles where they're looking at your gross and then you do your mileage calculation and how much, you're getting taxed on, but that's not like the full story. And I hate that they frame it this way, but we'll go through this next week. We don't really have time to do that. We only have 10 minutes left. I'm gonna check in with the comments, see what you guys are up to, and then I'm gonna end my stream in time for the Rideshare Guy podcast to start. So I'm gonna see what you guys are up to. You guys are up to nothing. It's dead in here. So I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna leave. We'll cover some more topics next week. I really want to talk about self-driving, right? With Tesla and their robo-taxis. So not even self-driving, robo-taxis, and will it have an effect on the gig space? So you let me know. You let me know what you think. If I have any interesting comments that relate to the robo-taxis, I will, bring them up. We'll talk about them. So, Musk's Master's robo taxi plan giving Tesla the Uber and Airbnb treatment. They do have an event that's going to be coming up in August. I'm going to live stream that event, and I'll probably make videos covering my thoughts on this. But here's what I will say. Right, not a lot of people think these things will be successful. Like we see Waymo videos all the time, but it doesn't have to be 100% successful for it to hurt our pockets, right? Just the fact that people think that rideshare drivers can be replaced by technology is a threat in itself, right? Whether they can realize that goal is a different conversation, right? We know Uber and Lyft want to replace us. We know that there are companies who are going to try, and in the midst of trying, it can still be disruptive to your income. So just appreciate and accept that as far as rideshare goes, today is probably always going to be the best day to make money moving forward. That's just kind of how I'm looking at it. This summer is the best summer we're going to have moving forward as far as rideshare goes. This winter, no matter how bad it is, it's going to be the best winter we have because the winter after that's going to be worse. So right now is the best time to make money with rideshare, right? And the best time to make money with rideshare was in the past. The second best time to make money with rideshare is now. The third best time to make money with rideshare will be in the future, and I believe that every day. So if you can make money today, go out there and make your money. If you make money faster than you made it before, don't take a break. Right? If it takes you 8 hours to make $200, and you're able to do it in 4 hours, just keep going. Keep working that 8 hours. Be intentional. Know where your money's going. Know what your plan is, and figure out a way to get out of rideshare. When I say rideshare, I mean like private rides too. If you want to do private rides, that's fine. I think that's a viable avenue to take if you want to be a long-term rideshare driver. But I don't want to be a long-term rideshare driver. I want to do something where I don't have to sit or be there to make the money, and the money is made as I'm like living my best life. So I'm hoping the best for all of you. Pay off your debts, lower your expenses, make that money, and just keep pushing forward. I know it's rough. I know it's hard, but if you don't do it, it's gonna suck. I'll catch you guys later.